Welcome. Council acknowledges the Wadawurrung traditional owners of the land, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the Greater Geelong community today. This meeting is being broadcast on the internet, and the recording of the meeting will be published on the Council's website. Good evening, everybody. Thank you again for tuning in. Our councillors are meeting online once again tonight via Zoom, and we're very glad to have members of the community with us via the live stream. Now, we have a huge agenda to get through tonight, so I won't linger. We'll begin straight away and get straight into the meeting. Do we have any apologies to note this evening? I don't think we do. No, thank you. Are there any requests for leave of absence from councillors tonight? Not at this stage, thank you. May I have a mover and seconder to confirm the minutes for the Community Focus Council meeting held on the 11th of August 2020. Moved Councillor Aitken, seconded Councillor Mason. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Thank you, carried. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest in relation to tonight's agenda? Not at this stage, but if any conflicts do arise during the meeting, please make them known to me and we will note that. Now, public question and submission time. We've received 4 questions and submissions and have now received a response via email to each of those people. It's important to note that all the councillors do read the questions and the answers as well and the submissions. We won't read the questions out in full, but for the record and for the sake of transparency, the following people have sent in questions and received replies. We've had one from Jennifer Lloyd about food waste recycling, one from Lee Crawford about the Barwon Heads structure plan submissions, one from Belinda Maloney about the environment management strategy, and one from Monica Winston also about the environment management strategy. So we thank all 4 of those people for raising really good questions, and I hope you're satisfied with the answers that you've received. Do we have any petitions to table tonight? No, I don't think we do. Okay, we do have 2 requests from councillors to express some condolences tonight. So I'd like to call on firstly Councillor Sullivan and then Councillor Murray. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. As many will be aware, a great tragedy befell the Port Arlington community last Thursday, the 3rd of September, a day which family will forever be a day of mourning and heartbreak. A precious young toddler, Anna Greenie, lost her life in a tragic accident at the very centre of our town. Now, the death and loss of a child is one of life's cruelest events, unjust and undue in every way possible. Our thoughts and prayers are certainly with her mother Billy, father Patrick, and all of the family. Nothing anyone can do will ever be able to take away their pain, but I do hope that small solace can be found in knowing that their community stands with them now and in continuity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Very well expressed. Councillor Murray.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. We had the sad news last Thursday, the 31st of August, of the death of a current member of the Geelong Major Events Committee in Russell Morris. Russell was a very popular member of the GME. He had great passion for Geelong, passion for major events, and was a very active member right up until his death. His history involved time with the Geelong Football Club, where he was on the board there from the 1977 to 1982. And he had a very long association with the sport of water skiing, having commenced in Geelong competitively and then went through the ranks as a competitor and then on the committee side of things, where he finished up chair of Moomba water ski event, chair of Asia Pacific region of the world body of water skiing. He was also a premiership player, coach and committeeman of the Geelong Amateur Football and Netball Club. And at one stage, he was actually in charge of recruiting at the Geelong Football Club. To me, Russell was always eloquently dressed, was a man of style, and he will be sadly missed by those on the GME and the greater Geelong. He's survived by his wife and 2 children, and he will be sadly missed.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Thank you, Councillor Murray and Councillor Sullivan. I echo your sentiments. They are both beautifully articulated, and on behalf of the city and the community, I also pass on our sincere condolences. On that slightly sombre note, we will begin the meeting and go into the report section. The first item is the proposed amendment C391 GGEE and planning permit PP 39/2019, Ash Road East, Leopold, to be moved by Councillor Sullivan and seconded by Councillor Mason. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have before us a recommendation to support the preparation and exhibition of a combined planning scheme amendment C391 GGEE and a planning permit to rezone land at 73 to 85 to 143 to 155 Ash Road, Leopold, to general residential zone 1 and design and development overlay, and to subdivide the land for conventional residential development. This amendment is supported by the Leopold Structure Plan adopted by Council in 2013, which identified this land as suitable for conventional residential development in one of the city's growth areas. The South East Leopold Framework Plan was prepared in 2016 to guide the rezoning and redevelopment of approximately 80 hectares south of the Belmont Highway between Ash Road and Mollers Lane. This application covers about half of the area known as the Ash Road East. The general layout of the proposal subdivision accords with the South East Leopold Framework Plan 2016 and allows for a cohesive development across this area. The rezoning affects 5 properties, whilst the permit application only applies to 2 of the larger central located properties. The lot yield from this planning permit will be approximately 195 lots. Now, the subdivision layout has been influenced by the approved Mollers Lane development to the east and by the road structure of land to the west in the Ash Road West area that was rezoned in Amendment C280. Development contributions will be required for community infrastructure and allocated towards the pavilion at Estuary Reserve. These are to be attained through a Section 173 agreement. Now, a development on the Bellarine has been an interesting topic, or a hot topic rather, for many, many years now. But everybody I've talked to within the Leopold community has been very supportive of this development. They find there was a shortage of housing in their town, and people who've grown up in Leopold are now struggling to find new residences within Leopold for themselves to be able to continue to maintain their relationship with the township. So this is one recommendation which has vast support of the community. So I'm very happy to be moving this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and thank you, Councillor Sullivan. And yes, this is a growth area, and these lots have been put out for community consultation. I think Councillor Sullivan has described it very well. There are environmental implications, and stormwater drainage will flow through Mollers Lane development and into Lake Connewarre. This will follow the natural stormwater flows rather than a formally constructed watercourse. And it does have the support of the CCMA and the city engineers. This impact of freshwater flows into the lake will include conditions for stormwater management and may require a separate application of the Commonwealth Government for approval under the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act. Appropriate offsets will also be required for the removal of native vegetation, and development contributions will be required for the community infrastructure and, as Councillor Sullivan just said, allocated towards the pavilion at the Estuary Reserve through a Section 173 agreement. Also, the land will provide for a linear open space local park and co-located stormwater detention basin. These will connect to the Mollers Lane development and provide easy walking and cycling access through the new estate. As far as community engagement is concerned, the current landowners and other parties were consulted in the preparation of the South East Leopold Framework Plan in 2016, and all landowners affecting the rezoning proposal have given their support to the applicant to make the rezoning application. There will be an opportunity to make submissions, and the amendment will be available for viewing online. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Very thorough. Has anyone else got any comments on this item? No, quite well explained. Back to Councillor Sullivan to close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Mason, for all your words. This has been an area that is a lot of work has gone into this project on this side near the Molas Lane development. I want to be supporting this if I had the full, or if I had the full support of the Leopold community. I believe they're thoroughly behind this, and so I'm happy to finish on that. Thank you.
Great. Okay. On that note, we'll put the item to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Okay. Thank you. Carried. Item 2 is Amendment C401 GGEE Community Care Accommodation 120 Russells Road, Mount Dunedin. Consideration of the panel report and adoption, to be moved by Councillor Harwood and seconded by Councillor Nelson. Thank you, Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. This has been I guess, a difficult topic to address, given the nature of what's proposed, and there's been a lot of discussion around the area where this particular facility is potentially going to go. And so, but the report recommends that we adopt the amendment and with some changes and submit to the Minister for Planning for the ultimate approval. But the amendment seeks to pave the way for a women-only residential drug and alcohol rehabilitation facility to be built on vacant farmland at 120 Russells Road in Mount Dunedin. Now, this is under the care and guidance of Foundation 61, which has a proven track record in helping people put their lives back together who have been devastated by drug and alcohol issues. And it is a much needed facility for our region. And this particular facility is being built, or potentially will be built, in an area that is very conducive to people being rehabilitated for these particular issues. And there's, as I say, it's already proven not far from this site, where a men's only facility is very active and has proven to be very, very successful with rehabilitating people and allowing them to come back into the community as good, strong contributors, which we need. And this women's only facility will have that same impact of people who find themselves in quite desperate times, and their lives are at crossroads. And these facilities are critical to them putting their lives back on track. So some of the issues that have been raised have been addressed by the panel, and the recommendation is that we support this particular facility. And I'll leave it there for the moment. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Howard has said pretty much everything that needs to be said. There was a bit of community concern about the exact location. We tried to alleviate their concerns by having it closer by down the road, but that didn't eventuate. So I think in the end this has dragged on for some years already. So there's already women out there that are missing out on this facility, this much needed facility. So I think if at this late stage in the game, if we try and make another move, I mean, that's another couple of years of planning. Planning doesn't move terribly quick, as we all know. So I think the fundamental responsibility of government is to protect its citizens. So Rob Litsky does a great job at Foundation 61, and this female facility will do exactly that too. So not the perfect location, but a much needed facility. So the sooner we get this done, the better. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Manane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to endorse the words of my two other Kadini Award councillors. We all agreed there back in March when this came to Chamber for the first time. The Kadini Award councillors agreed that we'd go to the Minister to appoint an independent panel to look at some of the issues that had been raised by the community, and we thought that was the best course of action, and that those matters have now been considered by the independent panel, have come back to us. And the panel have found that the planning amendment was pretty well founded and geographically pretty sound in terms of guidelines. And And they also made the point that my fellow councillors have made of how desperate the community is in need for not only these facilities, but more facilities of this nature in our community. And they also, in addressing the issues that were raised by the community, they found that there would not be any substantial land use conflict with neighbours. And so all of those things have been appropriately considered by an independent panel. They also confirmed something that we already knew and something that has been voiced by my fellow councillors. We have an organisation here in Foundation 61 with a very, very good track record of success and helping people recover from substance abuse. And they already run a similar facility in a similar location, not far from this proposed. I think we all know that this matter of substance abuse that we're dealing with is a genuine crisis in our community and most communities, and that really it's a time for the whole of the community to pitch in and help governments, help organisations like Foundation 61 with a community problem, and we need to all work together to find the solutions that can help the people in need. So I'm supportive of the recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Murnane. Any other comments on this one? Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. Look, from a planning perspective, this is a ward-based issue, but in terms of the service that's actually being given, this is a Geelong-based issue. And actually will be welcomed across the whole of Geelong for what is actually proposed at this particular site location. It's fascinating when you talk to the broader community that they don't believe there's a significant drug addiction problem that exists and alcohol addiction problem that exists in the Geelong community. And what this particular proposal do, it actually is attempting to rescue the lives of 8 women and actually revive their opportunity to have meaningful lives and actually make a contribution to their community. And I think this is a very welcomed facility for the whole of Geelong. We desperately need it. Thank you for the support of the ward councillors from a planning sense, but certainly as a councillor has a strong interest in those that are most vulnerable and need support. This is an absolutely fantastic initiative, and thank you to Foundation 61.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Any other comments? Councillor Murray.
Yeah, I'd like to support the words of all my fellow councillors that have spoken, and especially the Gdynia ward councillors. From a facility like this, where is the perfect location? And which is, a great question. And I think the work that's been done over a fair period of time now to pick this location and then work around this and send it off to the panel and then abide by the changes that the panel have suggested. It's ticks for everyone involved in this. Certainly, as Councillor Aitken has just said, this is saving people's lives and female lives. So I'm very supportive of this, and the reputation of Foundation 61 needs no more words. I think and I think it was 12 months ago. Some councillors I was with, we stood out there on a Friday evening, and the wind was blowing, and the trees, and you just wonder how a facility like this would ever get off the ground and be in that location. Well, it is going to be now, and credit to everyone involved.
Thanks, Councillor Murray. Well said. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Look, I too would just like to voice my support for this recommendation. I appreciate that there is a range of community feedback about this issue, but I have confidence that the recommendation has taken those concerns into account, and I believe the correct recommendation has been made here. In addition to some of the concerns that have previously been discussed, there were some concerns raised about native vegetation loss, and it's acknowledged that there will be some as a result of this facility being built, but a number of amendments have been made to try and offset that as much as possible and preserve as much of that vegetation as is practical in that area. It's a difficult one, but this, as has been said, is a much needed facility. As a GP who's works with people experiencing drug and alcohol issues, I'm very aware that we have a severe lack of facilities for people who at various points might need a rehabilitation environment such as this. And so, as has been said, it's much needed and will go a long way to making a difference for many people's lives who are requiring this kind of support. So I'm also very supportive of this.
Thanks, Councillor Mansfield. Any other comments on this one? Councillor Mason.
I won't reiterate everything that's been said, but I'll endorse it, Mayor Asher. And just to say that I've visited the men's facility there a few times nearby, and I can only say how impressed I am with the work that's being done there and the rehabilitation. So I endorse the program as well.
Thanks, Councillor Mason. Any others? I'll just make a quick comment about, as with most planning decisions, I think rather than there being winners and losers, there's probably compromises along the way that have been made with this, and there will be, certain people who aren't thrilled by it. But I think in terms of the content and the nature of the facility, it's probably worth it in the end. So back to Councillor Harwood to close.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Look, ideally, we wouldn't need these facilities in the ideal world, but that's not the case, as we know. We know there are people that suffer alcohol and drug issues, and they do need specific targeted help, and this facility delivers that. And it's not just 8 women as such. This will be, over a period of time, this will be many women and children who will be potentially on site. I would imagine that are going to be the benefactors. And these are people who are reaching out for help to get their lives back on track and become good, solid community citizens. So this is their opportunity. And I guess as someone who lives very close to a Salvation Army housing crisis facility and a Barwon Health mental health facility, I can assure you there's nothing to fear of these facilities as such. The people that are there for the right reasons. They want to get their lives back on track. They understand their lives are in turmoil at different times, and these facilities are there to help them. The people that are engaged in helping running these facilities are unbelievably brilliant at what they do, and the results speak for themselves. The success of Foundation 51 is unparalleled, and we're incredibly lucky to have these facilities in our area. So I wholeheartedly support the recommendation, and I look forward to the long-term benefits this will bring our whole community. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Harwood. We'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Well done. On to item 3 is the Belmont Fenced Dog Park Submissions Review Panel report, to be moved by Councillor Nelson and seconded by Councillor Manane. Thank you, Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report asks Council to endorse the location for a new fenced dog park in Belmont, paving the way for detailed design and construction to begin, and hopefully it'll be finished in early 2021. So once we come out of COVID restrictions, we can go to this new and exciting space, the first of its kind for our part of Geelong. Obviously, there's one in the north, but down here in the south would have been much needed. My dog, myself, if I let her off the lead, I'd never see her again, because that's the way she's wired. But this will be great for everyone. We had, I'll just read these stats out. We had, on our social media campaign, it reached over 36,000 people, which is just mind-blowing. 36,000 people that are interested in dog parks. So that's really good. Most people got online, said positive things. There was only one objection, and they were for reasons that the panel thought were not insurmountable. So this is a good submission in a good place underneath the James Harrison Bridge along Barrel Road there. And I'll leave it to my fellow councillors to see what they have to say.
Thanks, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Manane.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. This really is one of those good news stories, and our community engagement in this matter, as Councillor Ron Nelson has just said, we actually did reach a huge number of people. I think, as he said, 36,000, and overwhelmingly the response was very positive. And of the written responses, you know, some of them even provided us with design suggestions. Such was the level of interest and I guess maybe even excitement that in this matter. Currently, the Cardinia Ward has only got the one fenced dog park, which is about 12 kilometres away from this Belmont location, so effectively it's almost the only one. And we have 8,000 registered dogs in the ward, so there's a real need for the facility now. And I think we all know that getting out and walking your dog is not only great exercise for your dog, but it's also an excellent opportunity for you individually, your own individual requirement for daily exercise, which is an important ingredient for good health. So it's not only your dog, but it's yourself you're looking after as well. And these locations can also contribute towards the development of a more inclusive and diverse community in these times, and it helps some people with issues around isolation and the like. So the introduction of this facility couldn't be more timely, both in terms of the dogs' needs and the community's needs. So I'm very supportive, and it's great to see that this one's up and running, and hopefully we can afford some more budget for a few more in the months of the budgets in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Manane. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Yeah, again, just endorse the comments of Councillor Manane and Councillor Nelson. This has been a little while in the making, and there'll be hopefully other dog parks rolled out around the area. They've been highly sought after for reasons as stated, and I don't think you can underestimate, I guess, the health and well-being of a dog park and what it brings to not just the dog, but obviously to the people that gather around and talk about their dogs that they love, and talk about life in general, and probably make new friends, and just enjoy, I guess, another aspect of their community. And I think that is the true value of the dog park. We were down on site not long ago with our dogs. I've got to give a shout out to Flynn, my dog. He passed away today, but he was a very much loved dog, and he had a great life, and he would love the dog park, so I'm going to support it. And we look forward to getting down there, maybe with a new dog in time, but it's a great thing for our community.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Harwood. Councillor Contell, and then Councillor Murray.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Sorry to hear that news, Councillor Harwood. We do know that dogs and all pets, I guess, become part of the family. In particular, dogs, I guess, you have them for a good, decade or so, and so generally introduced while children are young, and then grow up into their adulthood, and so they certainly do become part of the family. So I'm assuming that your family would be, grieving tonight because of the great memories that you would have had with the dog. So sorry to hear that. Back to the report. These Councillor Manane says a good news story. It is, but this infrastructure is really, really important, and it's becoming more important as Geelong grows. Because of our population growth, areas where we used to be able to walk our dogs, it is becoming harder and harder. So you think about the Barwon River, the waterfront, even the sporting ovals. We're becoming so much more populated, and you've got a mix of cyclists, you've got a mix of people on scooters, on walking with prams, and we're all mixed together. And I have heard, even just in the last sort of 6 months, of incidents occurring in that regard, where a dog's been on a lead, and a cyclist's come up the path, and so you have these conflicts. And so people want to be able to go to an area where they can allow their dog to run free without be in fear of endangering the dog themselves or others, but equally the local laws, because we know there's only limited places where you can allow that to happen. And so you want the experience with the pet when you're out and about with them to be as pleasant as possible, because that's what it's all about. And so these parks are becoming a real need, not just a nice to have. They're becoming a real need in our community. I know the one in Corio, Nor Lane, is well attended. This one here that's proposed in the Cardinia ward is in an excellent location. I think it'll be really well attended as well because it's so populated. But yeah, I fully endorse it, and I think we'll have to continue to introduce these type of spaces for people to be able to socialise, allow their pets to socialise, and also to be able to do that in a manner where they don't feel like they're causing any harm, and equally aren't at risk of any local law infringements. So totally supportive of the report and its intent.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Contell. Any other comments? Councillor Murray, sorry, Councillor Murray, I should have gone straight to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I just want to say that Councillor Harwood, I'd met Flynn a few times, and it is sad news that he certainly looked like he'd had a great life. But I want to endorse what everyone has said about this dog park. This is exciting. It's a good news story. And I think what COVID has done, it has really flushed out people walking their dogs. I think, sometimes we become lazy, but what COVID has done has really flushed out people, and the number of people walking their dogs, from what I see around the Barwon River, is amazing. All shapes and sizes, and the dogs love it, the owners love it. So an actual dog park itself is an exciting project, and I think what this council has done in the early days, when we passed the dogs were allowed on the ovals, on sporting ovals, and any time of day, if you drive past an oval, there's always sort of a group of owners having a chat, and there's a group of dogs running around, enjoying themselves, and that's what we'll see at this dog park. So it is great news. I have some concern. It is close to the border between Brownbill and Cardinia, and I've heard the reputation of the Cardinia dogs, so I'm not too sure whether the Brownbill dogs will be able to mix too well once they cross that river into the dog park at Belmont. But tongue in cheek, this is great, and so it has my full support.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Any other comments on this one? Councillor Aitken, I think I know what you're going to do.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. Look, I just want to reassure the community that this isn't just a standalone project. This is actually part of a strategic decision that Council has actually made to invest in dog parks, where and actually is part of a legacy that I've mentioned previously. The former council was actually sacked, and there's a couple of councillors that sit on this council that were some of those that were sacked. But the person that was actually appointed with Commissioner was Jude Munro. Jude was actually the CEO of the City of Brisbane for over 10 years. And the City of Brisbane actually pioneered dog parks throughout the whole of Australia. And it's appropriate that Jude was also the municipal monitor during the time that council actually made its strategic decision to invest in dog parks because of the significant animal management control issues that dog parks, because they enable socialisation between dogs that otherwise wouldn't have been able to happen. And I'm really pleased that what council did do, we identified that on a data basis that the two highest areas in Geelong with ownership, the highest was Lara and the second highest was Belmont. And tonight we are talking about the Belmont site location, but I just want to reassure all the people that live in Lara that council is committed and actually undertaking the Lara Dog Park as well too. Council strategically and financially this financial year has committed to establish 2 dog parks, One is in Belmont, which is what we're discussing tonight, and the other is in Lara. And I look forward to that actually being built in the Lara community and respond to that need. And I look forward to future years, the further expansion of our dog park strategic strategy for the rest of Geelong as well too.
Councillor Aitken, any other comments on this one? I'd just like to note and thank the state government for some funding for this one too, because the state government put $225,000 towards this dog park. So I think that's noteworthy and we do appreciate that. So Councillor Nelson to close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to pass my condolences on to Councillor Harwood. I think Flitty was 17, was he, Bruce? 17. That's a pretty good innings. But he would certainly have loved it. I saw him a few weeks ago when we came down and had the photo with Councillor Pete's dog. That was good to see him. Just getting back on to what Councillor Aitken said, the second highest dog registration is actually Heighton, Councillor Aitken, not Belmont, but I'll let you get away with that one. Just in closing, what some of the people were talking about online that I was watching was, will there be separated areas for big dogs and little dogs? The answer is yes. There will be a separate space for small or timid dogs. There'll be dog training and obstacle areas. There'll be balancing beams, hurdles, weave poles, tunnels, a sand area, and obviously paths and seating. So this will be great for all those dogs that, like my dog, can't get off and run because she loves to run. But as I said before, I would never see her again because I can't run after her because she'll just run all day being a husky. So this one's for you, Bella. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson, a dedicated dog park. Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. On to item 4, which is Osborne House Sustainable Development Plan. Councillor Contell, I believe, is going to move an amendment. Okay, I'll get you to read out your amendment, Councillor Contell, and then we'll see if someone will second it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to move the amendment as a substantive motion so that it can continue to be debated. Just before I do that, I do want to thank Councillor Aitken for helping draft these amendments because he's put the bulk of the work into that. So thanks, Councillor Aitken. So in addition to the first two items, we've got 10.3. I will read them all because I believe we can't see them on the screen. So 10.3 modifies item 6 in the report to include that the Osborne Park Association and the Geelong and Region Branch National Trust as members of the project reference group. 10.4 requests the existing project reference group be maintained and consulted to assist the development of the January report and terms of an expression of interest process, which will be discussed further in the debate. Receive a further report in January 2021 to outline options for the maritime and naval collection housed in the Osborne House stables. 10.6 acknowledges that the Geelong Jail and the Geelong Post Office have been sold and wishes to re-engage with the state government to confirm the conditions around the availability of the heritage loan funds associated with these assets for the restoration works of Osborne House and stable remain, which we're aware of. They were mentioned in previous notice of motions. Reaffirms in its 2018 resolution that the funds from the council's lease agreement on the former Russell Polo field would also be directed to the restoration and maintenance of Osborne House. Once again, that was in previous notice of motions, and confirms that the Osborne Park sports grounds mentioned in the consultant report do not form part of the Osborne House Sustainable Development Plan, and there are no plans to change the sporting oval's usage or the planning zoning. And I know that will make the Osborne Park sporting clubs, particularly North Geelong, very comfortable. So thank you to the community for feeding that feedback back to us, and thank you to Councillor Aitken for helping us draft those.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Councillor Aitken, are you prepared to second that amendment? Thank you. Okay, Councillor Contell, you can now talk to the whole amendment.
Okay, thank you. So look, after many, many years, in fact, for myself, some 10 years, it really is extremely pleasing and really exciting that we're now taking another step forward to the potential development, restoration, and obviously the sustainability of Osborne House. And as many would be aware now, that Osborne House and its stables and the courtyard were designed by leading architects and erected in 1858 for the successful pastoralist Russell Muirhead and his wife Mary. Also, as many would be aware on this council, that since we adopted the momentous notice of motion in July 2018, where it was this council that committed to retaining Osborne House and its stables in public ownership, and to develop a business, a building and master plan and a business case for its future use and operating model. Much work's been occurring at various levels of progress, but today we are taking this forward, and there has been significant progress in the process that has been adopted over the last 12 months, and that's been significantly improved. And we do thank Ian Hicks and Robin Stevens and the team for leading that. In fact, in 2020, Council resolved to prepare a sustainable development plan for Osborne House that would identify options for its future use that were consistent with agreed processes and principles. So since then, we've had a number of forums. We've had significant stakeholder engagement, including from the Osborne Park Association. And from what I hear from those stakeholders, that the process over the last 12 months and the progress has been really, really healthy. So there are a number of options that are starting to emerge. But today, we're not settling or adopting any specific option. And we know that we've received much feedback from many areas of the community. I want the community to rest assured that tonight is not about landing on an option or deciding exactly what is going to happen with Osborne House or Osborne Park. There is still work to do for that to occur. But what we need to do as councillors and what we need to do as a council is to stay true to the notice of motion of July 2018, where we were strong on our view that, one, Osborne House needs to be maintained as a public and a community asset, but more importantly, that the community need to be the beneficiaries of whatever operating model or whatever the future holds, and that the access to the community and community groups needs to be appropriate, and it needs to be predominantly for that cause and that reason. But we also know for it to be sustainable, it's going to need other aspects to be able to operate successfully, and that could also be very, very exciting. What tonight's report is about is testing the market, testing what partnerships could potentially be put together to explore various options of commercial, state government, local government, and community usage of Osborne Park. And so that's what we're adopting tonight, is to allow council to now go forward and to test what is out there, who is prepared to invest and get involved in the future use of Osborne House. It's not until we do that that we can really start to look at what the operating model may look like into the future and what the use of Osborne House will be into the future. But I think what I'd like to finish off with is to assure the community that there is a lot of goodwill around the table, that councillors are by and large supportive of the community use and the community engagement and the community being beneficiaries of the final outcome of whatever the future may hold for Osborne House. I thank, and I will thank in closing again, but I thank all of the stakeholders that have been involved thus far. I'll name some of them more specifically later on. But without those stakeholders, particularly Osborne Park Association and the others, we wouldn't have got to this point. So I'll leave it at this point and let others talk to it.
Thank you, Councillor Contell, and well managed with the time there as well. Councillor Aitken?
I reserve my right, Mayor Asher.
Sure, thank you. Any other councillors like to comment on this one? Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. I'm really pleased to have held the Arts and Culture and Heritage portfolio for 2 years into the term of this council, and to continue as chair of the Heritage Advisory Committee over the last 18 months or so. And so with this background, I do have developed a special interest in Osborne House, and I am aware of the need to resolve some very difficult problems. We can't let this project stall again and let Osborne House fall into disrepair. And it's great that this council has seen the need to bite the bullet. And so in February this year, we confirmed that Osborne House, meaning the place, the council depot, the polo fields and the stables will remain in council ownership and control, and that the sustainable development plan would be prepared. And so there was extensive stakeholder engagement, as Councillor Contell has mentioned before, including a project control group and a project reference group. And there were 5 options developed, and they have to be considered more deeply in the future. It was resolved that the redevelopment of Osborne House as a cultural heritage asset may be feasible in partnership between the city and the state government or private partners. So with all of this and all of the things that have just been said, it's been recommended to undertake a process of testing the interest of potential partners before any decisions are made, and that such an expression of interest is proposed to be undertaken in early 2021, subject to the processes being designed and presented to the council for endorsement by December this year. And Mayor Asher, there remain community concerns to maintain stakeholder consultation during this process. And I want to emphasise that this motion with its amendments will ensure ongoing adequate participation is assured. And any expression of interest process must be designed in accordance with the social equity considerations outlined in the report, and that includes the principles adopted by Council on the 25th of February this year, including the cultural, social, financial and environmental principles. So we're taking here note of what must be done. The expression of interest test will be designed transparently and in consultation with the project control group and the project reference group. Further, the cultural heritage management plan must be complete, and the council will then consider reports, and no decisions are going to be made at this stage. Mayor Asher.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. I just quickly wanted to jump on and say thank you to all of the community members who did keep all of us councillors involved in terms of letters of support and emails, especially a gentleman by the name of Jim, who's from the Corio Bay Camera Club, who has kept me informed all along the way. And it's really where I gained my support for this document is directly from those community groups. And it was hopefully tonight we approve this plan. It's our passion to make sure that those community groups can continue to use Osborne Park and that it continues to be maintained at a high standard. Thank you, Mayor Asher.
Thank you, Madam Deputy. Well said. Councillor Manane. You're on mute, Councillor Manane. You need to take yourself off mute.
My apologies. I'm really encouraged to receive this report because I think probably for the first time for myself, and that I think we can see a practical way forward to this matter, and a couple of aspects that I'm encouraged by is Firstly, it really does address the long-term sustainability of the site, whilst at the same time recognising the need to appropriately consider our obligations with respect to the heritage and with respect to the past tenants, who we know are all very keen to return once the restoration is complete. So there's a really good balance there in what we've got in this report, and I think we can see people working together to get to a conclusion. I think once we get to that point, we can also start to think about how the facility starts to interact and complement its surrounding areas, and the impact that the adjoining property and the area can have on the successful long-term sustainability of the project. Something that I think that's failed in past attempts because of its lack of connection. And yet, I see at the heart of what's happening here, there is a connection, and that could be an important way forward for that long-term sustainability success. And part of that connection, I think, is not only the connection of Osborne House to its immediate surrounds, which is obviously very critical, but its connection to the city, which in real terms is not very far away if you travel along the water's edge, and maybe even further. So I think if we look at it not only the project in itself, the project in its surrounds, and the project in its connection and importance to the city, with all of those matters into consideration and a degree of thought and compromise from everybody in place, I think we've got a practical solution that can be worked out. And that approach is really heartening. So I really look forward to seeing the next step in January, and hopefully we can encourage both commercial and government investment to help us reach our goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Manane. Any other comments on this one? Go to Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. Look, just wish to respond first to some of the changes that we've actually recommended, and that really was from feedback by the community. Importantly, we have a significant maritime and naval collection that actually used to be publicly accessible at the Osborne House stables, and I'm pleased that we're actually asking our officers to come back by January 2021 with some options for that particular collection, which also could be that they return back to the stables as an option. I'm also pleased that we're acknowledging that we have now sold the jail and the post office, which gives us a potential of $1,003,000 of state government funds that actually can be put into the restoration works of Osborne House and stables. And importantly, look, the consultant's report has caused a bit of unrest in the broader community because it actually talks about the sports grounds, which is the home of North Geelong cricket and North Geelong football, and the fire running track. And it's important that we do acknowledge in the recommendation that they are not part of the Sustainable Development Plan, and in fact Council has no plans to change the sporting ovals usage or the planning zones. So we give some commitment to the sporting communities that are neighbours to the Osborne House and Park site location. Look, there were 6 great grand European heritage assets in Geelong. One was the Geelong Jail, one was the post office, one was Osborne House, one was the Bow Trust aqueduct that goes across the Barwon River, and one was actually the Bow Trust building. The Bow Trust building was demolished for the TOC headquarters. Council sold the Geelong Jail. Council sold the post office. The Bow Trust aqueduct is under threat. And so the 2 grand European heritage assets that remain in Geelong under community ownership are City Hall and Osborne House. And I'm really pleased with the recommendations that have come forward from this report, because essentially the report's actually saying that it proposes that there should be $10 million commitment from the council towards Osborne House over 4 years. And that is fantastic because that's actually been the failure up until now of why the heritage restoration and Osborne House has not been able to move forward is because there's been no community funds committed towards it. This sustainability report actually clearly states that council needs to make a contribution of up to $10 million for this sustainable plan to actually move forward. What it also does as well, too, it talks about 5 different options. I personally actually believe what we will land on eventually is a hybrid or mixture of these. I actually believe that the final option that will come through the expression of interest process will be a community-private partnership project at Osborne House and Stables. And I look forward to the community continue to participate in this significant responsibility that we have about our heritage assets. Geelong Council doesn't have a very good record with looking after its heritage assets. What this particular report, it gives a clear plan for the future and also maintains community ownership of Osborne House.
You've been muted,
Madam Mayor, you're on mute.
Madam Mayor, you've been muted too.
Yep. I've muted myself. Sorry. Yes, you were muted as well. It was infectious, obviously. Councillor Aitken. Councillor Contell to close.
Am I not muted?
Good.
No, look, thanks to everyone for your input. I just wanted to spend a few minutes thanking a number of community groups and organisations. I think we've spoken about the positivity of the report, but equally we've been guided by the community for decades now on this, and this most recent report and the amendments drafted by Councillor Aitken again have been driven and influenced by the community. So we really thank the Osborne Park Association. We obviously thank the National Trust, particularly the Geelong and Regional Branch of the National Trust. Also individuals such as Cheryl Scott and Susan Alsop and Graham Palmer and Rennie Neurenhoff. Jerry Smith, the former Shire Crow President. Rod Charles, who's been involved not only as a Mayor of Geelong West, but also as a former Chair of the Osborne Park Association. I mentioned the Vietnam veterans, also the North Geelong sporting clubs, those at Osborne Park Reserve, and Roger and Barbara Allen, the Cryer Camera Club. There's been so many that have helped us to formulate where we've got to today, and we know that it's those individuals that need to be included into the future development of what occurs here at Osborne House and at Osborne Park, because it's only that way that we will get an excellent outcome for the community. And so thank you to all of those that have been involved for many, many decades. We ask that you stay the journey because we do need you going forward as well. And lastly, once again, to Robin Stevens, Ian Hicks and their team for guiding us through the last 12 months or so. We're looking upon your leadership to take this forward so that we have a successful outcome in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. So put this one to vote. All those in favour of the amendment, which is a substantive motion? Thank you. Those against? Carried. Okay, item 5.
That one, Mayor, we have a division on that one?
Division? Absolutely. So those in favour? Councillor Mansfield, Councillor Asher, Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Contell, Councillor Nelson, Councillor Murray, Councillor Manane, Councillor Harwood, Councillor Mason, Councillor Aitken, Councillor Grisbeck.
Great.
Excellent. Okay, item 5 is the endorsement of City Hall Conservation Management Plan, to be moved by Councillor Sullivan and seconded Councillor Mason. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Lovely. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before us, we have a recommendation to present and note the community feedback regarding the consultation process for the draft Geelong Town Hall Conservation Management Plan 2020 and for Council to endorse the final CMP. City Hall is entered in the Victorian Heritage Register under the title Geelong Town Hall, and of course permits are then required from Heritage Victoria for all future works to the glorious building. GJM Heritage Consultants were commissioned by the City in October 2018 to prepare the CMP, and in April 2020 Council endorsed the release of the draft CMP for public comment. The purpose of a conservation management plan is to identify what is significant about a place and specifically what aspects of a building need to be retained and conserved, along with what constraints apply to new development. Therefore, this CMP does not showcase future development plans or options, but is to be used as a rule book for people who wish to design alterations and additions to accommodate future use and compliance with the recommendations of the CMP. This should expedite the necessary permit approvals and make sure the right permits and works are issued in the future, should they be needed. 34 community submissions were received in response to the consultation. All were private submissions except one from the board and management of Geelong Gallery and one from the Geelong and Region branch of the National Trust of Australia. 6 responses commended on the overall document or recommendations. No responses challenged the heritage significance of City Hall or the very need for CMP, which shows that the public understands the importance of our building here. 31 responses included comments as to the preferred use of City Hall. Whilst all this feedback is valuable for future decisions of council, they are not actually applicable to current consideration before the council this evening of endorsing the CMP, but a fantastic note nonetheless. Now, we are all very much well aware of the importance of our City Hall. It is Victoria's longest continuing seat of local government. It is a building that's admired and loved by the community, and indeed it's actually admired around the country for its preservation. This CMP will protect the City Hall for years to come. A lot of time and effort has gone into this document, and it's been the source of much vigorous debate. There was a lot of work put into it, especially by Councilor Mason, who's up second, before it was finally released to the public for comment. Had to make sure it was spot on. So I truly believe this document will protect the civic heart of Geelong and the amazing heritage that we have, because we always must put in a lot of effort in protecting our heritage, especially in the fantastic city that we have in Geelong. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and thank you, Councillor Sullivan. We have been awaiting the finalisation of this conservation management plan for quite a long time. And this is good in many ways. We do need to be certain that we've consulted widely and that everyone is satisfied and that we do have a high quality document. And we're certain that we do have that now. And as Councillor Sullivan just said, within this document are the guiding principles for City Hall conservation and for its future development. And so this place now remains a focus of the city's civic and cultural history, originally placed next to a billabong, which is now Johnson Park. We're proud that this 21st century expression of civic importance is developing on the northeast side of the park, our new civic accommodation building. This new building will have its own story to tell and will be a sequel to our colonial history. And as Councillor Sullivan said, there were 32 submissions. None of them objected to this conservation management plan, although there were one or two submissions, one from the gallery, the Geelong Gallery, and another one through the another private one, where there was a debate about what style the town hall, as it was called in those days, whether it was a Greek revival style or a Renaissance revival style. So we've resolved that it's now going to be integrated and called a Roman Ionic style or a classical revival style, which encompasses all. So this debate's been really good because it means there's been nothing really difficult to discuss. We've just been discussing the nomenclature and the style. So all in all, this conservation management plan is going to fit us very well for the future. And I do credit all of those who worked on this, the officers, the Heritage Advisory Committee, the Art Gallery Board, the Geelong branch of the National Trust, and members of the public. And I thank them all for the work that they've put into this. A culture of excellence emanates, and this can only be achieved through providing adequate resourcing for policy and management documents. And so it is good to put the resources in to get a good document, and to do otherwise actually would be, as the sages once said, penny wise and pound foolish. Mayor Asher.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Anyone else wish to comment on this item? Councillor Aiken.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. Look, I've actually learned a lot about conservation management plans through this particular process. What I have learned is when they first came out, they were all focused on the architecture of a building. And in recent years, conservation management plans actually also talk about the usage of a building as well too, in terms of what requires preservation and protection. And I'm really pleased that the conservation management plan that's actually been presented for us tonight talks about the significant architectural components of the Geelong Town Hall, but importantly, it entrenches the usage of municipal activities occurring at the site location. What the conservation management plan does, it entrenches the fact that the City Hall in Little Mount Street is the earliest surviving municipal building in Victoria. It also entrenches that City Hall is actually the longest serving continuous municipal usage in Victoria and possibly Australia in terms of 1855 and continuous. And I'm really pleased that the Conservation Management Plan actually talks about that principle must be maintained in whatever proposition is actually put forward for the future. And the Council has embraced that usage by actually saying that City Hall will be retained for civic meetings and ceremonial functions. So we will continue this significant heritage legacy that we have with City Hall. It is the civic heart of Geelong, and the Conservation Management Plan continues that this will be the civic heart of Geelong into the future. Most of the submissions were actually talking about the usage and actually saying it should be an art gallery. This debate now ends tonight because it actually says that the City Hall must continue to have some type of municipal usage going forward. What it does say is that we can find a usage blend between the architect, the usage and future opportunities. And future opportunities are clearly to do something with the Geelong Art Gallery. But importantly, the Conservation Management Plan gives me confidence that as a council group, we can find a future for Town Hall that preserves it, maintains it, continues its significant usage and history that it has in the whole of Australia. And we have an asset that we are very proud of as a community.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Any other comments? Councillor Manane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I'll just make one comment, which is towards this discussion. I guess we could be sitting all night talking about this if we're allowed to. My comment relates to the strategy, really, that this council articulated about 3 years ago when it first started to consider the future of these important historical buildings in our city. And I think we started to address them, firstly the jail, then the post office, and tonight Osborne House, and now City Hall. And I guess we came to the conclusion that to preserve them and to in fact honour them, I guess, we needed to co-invest in them and we needed to find a use for them. That was the best way to find their next life. And I think that we've learned from those other buildings, the jail, post office and Osborne House, that if you leave them empty, if you don't find that use for them, they will deteriorate and you won't actually honour them like we should. So I'd merely say that whatever the final decision, let's not leave City Hall empty and deteriorating. Let's find a use for it to keep it alive, whether it be for civic duties or whether part of it's to do with the art gallery. Let's find a really useful purpose for us into its future so that it doesn't sit empty, it doesn't deteriorate, and we do honour its future. Now that may be a suitable partnership or some other arrangement, but it's important that City Hall, when we move out, it's only for a very short time and somebody else occupies it and it keeps on living in the way it has. So let's aim for a solution of that nature. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Manane. Councillor Contell.
Madam Mayor. Yeah, look, I equally won't go into great detail, but as Councillor Manane said, the reason we were, or the reason we've been working so hard in relation to Osborne House is exactly for the reason that we're here tonight talking about City Hall, was because we didn't have these plans in place when the building was finally exited. And it's only through the hard work and the constant commitment of the community that we've been just fortunate enough to keep our hands on Osborne House. Otherwise, it equally could have got lost decades ago. We can't afford that to happen to City Hall. Whilst we don't want a white elephant in the middle of our CBD, it's a beautiful building. It's got so much history, such a strong link to the city and its origins, that we do need to find an appropriate use for it going forward, so that it continues to live as a cherished asset here in the CBD, but also that has a real purpose. The fact that we're considering and committing to its civic functions in the future, I think, is extremely important, given its links to local government. So I fully endorse this approach of getting in early and putting a plan in place that will allow City Hall to continue to live and breathe into the future in an appropriate manner that sees the public continuing to be able to access it and enjoy its environs.
Right, well said. Thank you, Councillor Contell. Any other comments on this one? Go back to Councillor Sullivan to close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just be brief. It's fantastic to listen and hear all this debate and passion that both councils and the community have about the future use of City Hall. Regardless of what that is, though, we should all be thoroughly assured that it will be protected with this CMP. I have the utmost faith. Thank you.
Thank you, well said. Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Excellent. Item 6 is the gambling application for the Warren Ponds Hotel, and Councillor Mansfield is going to move an alternate, I believe. So I'll ask you to read out that alternate, Councillor Mansfield, and then we'll get someone to second it. So you can read it out now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. So the alternate has 4 points in the recommendation, and that's that Council opposes, or that point 1, Council opposes the Warren Ponds Hotel Management Pty Ltd application to increase the number of electronic gaming machines from 70 to 81, and point 2, does not support an increase in EGMs anywhere in the municipality due to increasing community concern about the harm caused to individuals and the wider community through problem gambling. And point 3, notes that COG's gambling policy is currently under review, with a report due back to Council before the end of 2020. And point 4, writes to the state government requesting a review of the EGM cap in Geelong.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Is anyone prepared to second that alternate motion? Councillor Manane, thank you. Okay, Councillor Mansfield, you can talk to the alternate motion.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. So through this alternate, I'm calling on Council to oppose this application for more pokies at the Warren Ponds Hotel. I appreciate that the assessment against our existing policy, and it's worth noting that that's a policy that was written before our time as councillors, it doesn't support opposing the application. I respect and thank the officers for their advice on this difficult issue. However, our gambling policy is currently under review as a result of shifting community attitudes and the stance of this council on these matters over the term of this council. Further, as councillors, it's our duty to listen to the communities we serve and act in their best interests, and I believe we can only do this if we oppose the application. I've received strong community feedback in opposition to this application over recent days, and I believe that there are several key reasons why this stance is justified. Firstly, our municipality already has by far and away the highest number of pokies in any local government area in the state, and we experienced the fourth highest losses with over $100 million a year lost in over recent times. This venue already has 70 machines, and we know that more machines, there is a direct link to more problem gambling. There's a large body of research to support that, and I've cited that in previous debates. The best prevention in the case of harm from problem gambling in the case of EGMs is to reduce access to them. So in this motion, that's why I'm also asking Council to make a statement that we don't want any more EGMs in our municipality. We've said this in our debates, but let's make a stance and say as a council, we don't want any more EGMs in our municipality, and lobby the state government to review the cap on pokies. Again, something we've discussed doing, but let's do that. Until the cap is reduced, we're going to continue to face applications for more machines that our community doesn't need. Secondly, the impact of COVID is something that I think is really important to consider here. One of the few silver linings during COVID is that harms from problem gambling has, at least on pokies, is reduced due to gaming venues being closed. However, my concern is once the restrictions are eased, we're going to have a far more vulnerable population. There are many people who've experienced social and economic hardship, and evidence shows that this is the group that's most likely to experience harm from problem gambling. The data that our assessment of this application relies on is old census data that doesn't capture what's happened and continues to happen in this local community around the venue. It's an area that's growing rapidly and changing rapidly. The demographics are changing, and we're going to have much higher rates of unemployment and economic hardship in that area due to COVID. It's also closely located to student accommodation, and we know that young people are a particularly vulnerable group when it comes to problem gambling. And finally, the timing of this application has to be questioned. We're actually the only municipality that's had any applications during the COVID restrictions. And what this has meant is that our ability to engage with the community, get feedback from the community, get feedback from organisations that work in this space, these are organisations that are already stretched to their capacity, that's been really affected. So for all of these reasons, I feel that we have grounds to oppose this application. And just finally, in terms of this balance of benefit and harm, one of the arguments that's put forward is that the revenue from this will be put back into the community and that it might support some additional jobs, which is a benefit during the COVID period. But it's worth keeping in mind that the amount that goes towards the community is very small relative to the losses. On average, it's around 2% across our municipality. And in any case, it's where that money is coming from that we have to consider, and the harm that arises from problem gambling. And not everyone who uses EGMs has issues with problem gambling, but a substantial proportion do experience issues with problem gambling, and the ripple effects on their families, their friends, those around them, and to our broader community are things that have to be considered by us as a council. I'll leave it there and let my fellow councillors speak to this one. But as I said, I feel this is an important one where we show some leadership.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Manane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Mansfield, for your very well thought out alternative motion and the manner in which you've articulated your argument. I think you've said just about all that needs to be said. In fact, in essence here, this is a matter that we're not only in opposition to the particular application in question, and it could be any application, let it be said. It just happens to be this one here. We as a council are in a position where in protection of community safety, we need to object to any further increases in the number of electronic gaming machines in our municipality, regardless of the current number of machines that are operating, regardless of council's own current guideline, regardless of the state government cap. Put simply, council's electronic policy which was set in 2017, and it is currently under review, as we know, needs to change, and it needs to reflect the community's current circumstances. And furthermore to that, it needs to take into account the circumstances of the future in 2020, because we do know there are going to be increases in the level of unemployment and a whole lot of other associated issues. The circumstances of this, the Geelong region has the highest EGM density in country Victoria, across country Victoria, or the overall Victorian average, 6.3 EGMs per thousand. It's the highest. Geelong losses of EGMs in 2019, 18-19, and this data is now getting old, was $119 million. Potentially it is now a lot more than that. And this is only another 11 machines, but if you do the numbers, we're talking about another $1 million on top of the current losses. But I think overall, it's estimated that the percentage of Greater Geelong adult population with serious gambling problems is 2.51%. I'll just use those words again. Serious gambling problems, compared with the state average of 2%. That's a 25% higher than the average. If it was 5% or 2% or 3%, you could discount it. But we're talking about a 25% higher than the state average. And that clearly must be a reflection. So a complete review of both the policy, the state caps, and all other matters here need to be addressed before we approve any further EGMs to come into our community. Thank you, Mayor Asher.
Thank you, Councillor Nain. Well timed. Do we have any other comments on this item? Councillor Grisbeck and then Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. And this is a hard debate for me. There's no doubt that EGMs do cause society some serious issues. I'm hoping that I'm not jumping here. My internet is lagging. Madam Mayor, do you want to jump to someone else for the moment?
No, you're working just fine. I'll do this if it's not going well. You're fine for now. No, perhaps she's not. Okay, Councillor Harwood, you go and we'll come back to Councillor Grisbeck.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I just want to support Councillor Mansfield on this particular amendment. What she has conveyed thus far is clear and concise and makes more than good sense. It's consistent with our council view and our council policy for many years now. I'm not against EGMs. I'm just against the growth of them. I guess they're a legal form of entertainment, form of gambling. So I have no issue with that as such, but I do have an issue with, the continued growth, or even though it's just redistribution, I would prefer that we're able to reduce, not maintain or increase EGMs. And I guess one of the, if there is an upside to this COVID-19 scenario, it is that EGMs are not being used as much as they have been in the past, and there has been a substantial drop in losses of finance to our community. So that is a huge upside to COVID. So out of something quite bad for our community, there is a little tiny gold nugget in there for us as a community. And I hope that those who are no longer perhaps playing EGMs, especially those who are addicted, those who can't afford to spend time playing EGMs, break that cycle. Are able to reduce their reliance on having to play EGMs. I think that would be a good outcome for us as a community overall. So I fully support the current amendment as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. I fully support my councillor colleagues who've already spoken, and thank Councillor Mansfield for the lead she's taken in this. It was mentioned by Councillor Manane, $191 million in losses. That's gains as well for some clubs and some profit-making bodies. Now, that $191 million could be circulating through the community in other ways. It could be in the general economy. It could be going towards family and school needs, basic clothing necessities, circulating in other ways throughout the community. So I am in principle not about eliminating gambling, but I am in principle about raising funds or people making profits in more ethical ways, other than relying on the vulnerable people in our community to fund either their profit-making ventures or their club-making enterprises. So I think I've said enough there. I think there's more ethical ways of raising funds and of making profits, and this money can be circulating through the community in better ways and to the lesser detriment to families and vulnerable people.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. We'll go back to Councillor Grisbeck and then I'll try Councillor Murray.
Madam Mayor, point of order, please.
Yes?
So I don't know whether I said the number incorrectly or whether Councillor Mason didn't hear, but I said 119 million, not 191, just for sake of transparency.
Okay. Thank you for that correction, Councillor Manane. Okay, Councillor Grisbeck, then Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and hopefully my internet is going to stand up. Look, it's an interesting debate. I think the amendment, there are parts of the amendment that the alternate motion that I agree with, and there are parts that I don't. So, look, I think I'm with Councillor Harwood on there. There is a cap. It is a legal activity, and there are ways to be able to address those things within our community. And let's fight the cap. I agree. Let's write and let's try and do everything we can to either reduce the cap or taking a policy stance. But that policy stance hasn't yet come to us. We're still in the midst of drafting the gambling policy. I'm saying, and my personal view is, let's talk about all forms of gambling, not just EGMs. Let's talk about other, online gambling. I know that has since increased since people are sitting home on their devices. I think it's not against the law, but let's talk about what it does for Geelong as a society. And so that's where I'm in two minds. To fight the application from the city's perspective, it's usually around $30,000 per application to fight that at the VGLR. And my questions are debating on why council needs to be using municipal funds, residents' funds, whatever you want to call it, to fight those particular cases. But I totally understand why we do some and why we don't do others. The damage that it causes to society is not in question here. What is in question is, why are we taking this stance now when we have a draft policy coming in relation to the gambling policy? And that'll set out council's view about how we feel about it, hopefully, in my view, all gambling. All good questions, and this is why I can't necessarily support the alternate motion, because I think there are some things in there that I'm not comfortable doing without the advice of the policy that we're doing at the moment, in terms of making council's stance on all EGMs in particular. So I do agree that we should not be supporting the application for the Warn Ponds increase to EGMs, but I don't necessarily agree with the other parts of the alternate motion. So I'll be voting against tonight, but not because I don't think that it does harm to society, because it does, but just because I wanted to wait for the officer's report in relation to the new gambling policy to make that broader statement about gambling. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy. Very well expressed. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I'm also confused with the notice of motion, because we're talking about, in one quote, we're talking about the Warn Ponds application, And then we're talking about writing to the state government to review all areas of Geelong, all the capping, and we're really trying to incorporate different items that really have nothing to do with the specific application. Like Councillor Grisbeck, I'm actually not a fan of pokies, and I probably can't even remember when I played one last, to be quite honest. But we seem to be on this council, we seem to pick and choose what we want to do. We've done this the whole 3 years, that we hone in on EGMs, but we're okay with the Geelong Racing Club having gambling and horse racing. In fact, some of us are very engaged in that. We're okay with the TAB. We're okay with online betting. We're okay with footy betting, but we just focus in on one area. In the past, we've used the policy to say the policy is suggesting that the Polish club shouldn't have pokies. The policy is suggesting that the RSL shouldn't have pokies. Yet we followed the policy. This time, the policy is suggesting that the application does fit the framework. No, now we're going to go against the policy. If we're so determined to rid ourselves of gambling, and it's probably a good idea that needs to be debated, then why haven't we done something about putting a new policy in place? Why do we just use this scattergun bushfire type of approach that every time an application comes up, we hone in on that application, but we don't actually try and fix the broader issue? And I know that it's been said before that you can't educate against these things. You've got to take it away from the public. Well, I don't think that washes, because in any other form of social interaction, in any other form of legal proceedings, there's always an element of education, whether it be drink driving, whether it be use of drugs, whether it be speeding and not wearing seatbelts, and all those kinds of things. You don't just take things, you don't take cars away from people. You try to educate so that people do understand the harms that come with overindulgence in any activity. So whilst I'm not necessarily in favour of the EGMs, I'm not comfortable with what's been put forward to us. So for that reason, I can't support it, and I don't know why we focus in on just one particular item rather than all gambling, if that's what we're truly against.
Thank you, Councillor Quintel, and I do apologise, Councillor Murray, here I skipped you, so please go for it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, when I first saw the papers on this, I was troubled by the officer's recommendation to support the increase in these EGMs, and I was quite baffled as to why they would actually do that. And you read the report and they say it's consistent with our policy, but I believe there's a few holes in that. Now, my understanding of this, if this was an application for an increase in, say, a pokie venue out the north, it would be opposed by the officers. But because people in the Warren Ponds area are perceived to be much more comfortable off than those in the north, this application is not opposed. I have real issue with that. $6.6 million is taken in the last 12 months by this Warren Ponds facility, and my understanding of the numbers, about $15,000 of that has gone back into the community. I think we all have an opinion on the EGMs, and I think we've been consistent across the board each time we've debated it, so we know pretty much what we're going to say about it. And things haven't changed for me. I think they really prey on the vulnerable, and I think there's not enough weight being placed on the COVID-19 situation we're in at the moment. I mean, we have all spoken about it, how much that is going to affect the community, which it has in the last few months, but going forward in months and years to come. So we say that knowing that that's going to have a huge effect on the community, and yet here we are discussing the increase of EGMs at a pokie facility at Warm Ponds. I have real issue with that. I acknowledge that they're legal, but I believe we have a moral obligation here to oppose any increase. So I'm supportive of this this alternate by Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, once again, we find ourselves in another debate about EGMs and Council's position on the topic. I think Councillor Mansfield with this alternative motion, and I'm actually quite struggling with it myself. I've been quite consistent with my views on EGMs and the position that the City of Great Geelong and the Council should take. It's a perfectly legal activity, although many of us, aren't huge fans of this. It's outside of jurisdiction in that regards. Half of the 4 points here, I agree with writing to state government for requesting a review. That's something we've always talked about and always supported. Noting that our gambling policy is currently under review, as everybody has said. What are we working off? I find gambling to be a much larger issue than just EGMs. Problem gambling is certainly a much larger problem than simply what the word problem describes it as in our society. But we have many forms that are still going on under these COVID restrictions. I believe horse racing, greyhounds might still be going as well, and people can still hop on their phones or computer and bet on nearly any event that's still operating around the world. They can still do that from their homes in City of Great Geelong. I'm not entirely for increasing the number of EGMs in our municipality. I would much rather the state come through and lower the cap that we have here. But that is for the state to decide, not for myself, I believe. I'm uncomfortable with the council operating outside of its jurisdiction, as I've said before. Whilst we have a policy still under development. So I'm still undecided completely on this, but that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I'm a little confused by the alternate recommendation. Councillor Mansfield talks about the community's been concerned and they've contacted her about the concern, yet she hasn't contacted me. I haven't received an email, a phone call, nothing. I've not from Councillor Mansfield. So I have had one email from one concerned resident. I guess the other 99.9999% don't care. I've been consistent with EGMs. I don't like them. In fact, I hate them. I think they're antisocial. I think they prey on the vulnerable. I think that's undisputed. But I'm not sure what the alternate recommendation's about. The council's recommendation, as Councillor Mason always says, we should always go with the officer's report, and the officer's report says not to oppose it. So because we know in the last 3 years we've gambled with ratepayers' money and we've lost 2 out of 3 times. So we've wasted $60,000 of ratepayers' money because we've gone to gamble on ratepayers' money about a gambling that's legal, and we've lost twice. Yet the alternate recommendation still doesn't ask us to go and gamble against this. It just goes off track from the complete recommendation of what the report says with regard to Warm Ponds, the Warm Ponds Hotel. So yes, I'm against pokie machines, EGMs, but I'm not sure why this alternate recommendation has been proposed, because Councillor Mansfield hasn't contacted me with community concerns. So as far as I'm concerned, there's no community concern. So I'm not sure where this is going. So I'll leave it at that. We're waiting on our report from officers that are coming in December. So as Councillor Mason has always said, should we wait for the report? Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nelson.
Point of order there, Mayor Asher, if you don't mind.
Yes, what's your point of order, Councillor Mason?
My point of order is that I've never said that we have to go with council officer recommendations. I do say that we always should consider them. That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Aitken.
Look, thanks very much, Mayor Asher. Look, Councillors Gresbeck, Contell and Nelson are totally out of touch on this particular issue with the community, and it amazes me that I've worked with them so strongly for the last 3 years, and on this particular issue, every time it comes up before Council, they rattle out this garbage about how committed they are to the community, and they don't even listen and understand the community on this particular issue. We have 1,421 electronic gaming machines in Geelong, which is far too many. We have too many per head of population in the city of Greater Geelong. And in fact, they're saying that the only reason we should be not rejecting this policy position is because we've got a policy that actually says we shouldn't. Well, in fact, we have to take responsibility as councillors. I want to know why this policy is actually taking so long. Like we've put a lot of effort in the last 12 months for environment, and we've actually come up with a really good policy. I'm really interested why we actually have still got this particular important issue under review at this point in time, and I hope that someone can answer that for me. But irrespective of that, we have a responsibility of councillors to show leadership in the community in relation to this particular item and issue. And I strongly, I've actually worked with Councillor Mansfield over the last 36 hours to bring forward the motion that's been put for council tonight, and I'm proud of been working with Councillor Mansfield to be able to do that and bring forward it to the council tonight. On electronic gaming machines are a scourge on our community. The only benefit of COVID-19 has been $70 million has not been pumped through them in the Geelong community, and I hope it hasn't moved on to online forming opportunities. What we do know is that you need 6 to 8 weeks to create and break behaviour, which can be bad behaviour. And I hope that the restrictions of COVID actually does break people's addictions to electronic gaming machines. So I do believe on principle that we should be fighting this application. We should be rejecting it. And I'm not going to accept some of my colleagues that I have a very good working relationship to pilfer the statements that they've made tonight in relation to electronic gaming machines. We have too many. We have to reduce them. And by supporting them to go to the Warn Ponds Hotel, we are actually saying that we do support electronic gaming machines, and I cannot support that.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Very well and passionately expressed. I'll just say a couple of things. I think they're very sobering statistics we've heard tonight, and I do support this alternate motion as well. I think there's a good amount of work to go in it. I think it possibly is getting ahead of our review, but I'm disappointed that the gambling review is something we haven't got to yet. We have had it on the table for a long time. We just haven't really managed to land that. So it's unfortunate that this council term we haven't managed it, but hopefully the new council can take that as a priority action. So I support this particular alternate motion, and I think we should probably start to do a bit of work in the next couple of weeks with the lobbying. So, and I thank Councillor Mansfield for bringing it to us. So Councillor Mansfield to close.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and thank you to my fellow councillors. I appreciate this is a really difficult issue, and it has been a difficult one for us previously. I appreciate as well, as I said earlier, the officers have made, the best recommendation that the appropriate recommendation based on their constraints. However, for all the reasons that have been discussed, this is an application I believe we should be opposing. Just to respond to a few of the points that have been made, the reason we're focusing on electronic gaming machines as opposed to all forms of gambling in these discussions is because as councils we actually have a statutory obligation we're asked to respond to applications on behalf of the community to the VCGLR. We're not asked about other forms of gambling. EGMs is something that councils are asked to respond to every time one of these applications is made. And yes, it's true, we haven't fully worked out our policy. The part of the reason is where officers have undertaken very thorough review, including individual interviews with every councillor. And we also likely need to go out for a community consultation on that, and it's been a matter of finding the time to fit that in with all of our other consultations that are going on. But we look forward to seeing that. The other point about education, it's true. It's not a very effective form it's not a very effective public health measure. It's helpful in conjunction with other things, but regulation works best, and that's why when it comes to things like I think examples were drink driving and speeding. Yes, we have education about them, but we also have laws and regulation, and that's what really helps to address those issues. So look, I think this is one where, in particular in light of COVID, this is an application that we should be opposing. As a GP, the broader statements in the alternate come from my experience as a GP and other life experience, and the harm that I've seen come from problem gambling on EGMs in our community. So thank fellow councillors for their words, and look forward to seeing the outcome of this. I'll just foreshadow that if this is lost, I do have an amendment to the original motion to put forward.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Okay, so we'll put this alternate motion to the vote. All those in favour? Those against?
Got this call for a division, Madam Mayor.
Absolutely, the motion's carried. So well done, Councillor Mansfield. So those in favour? Councillor Mansfield, Councillor Asher, Councillor Murray, Councillor Harwood, Councillor Mason, Councillor Aitken. Right, did I get everyone? Those against? Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Contell, Councillor Grisbeck, Councillor Nelson.
I think you might have missed Councillor Manane in that one, Madam Mayor.
Sorry. Your hand was low there, Councillor Manane. I do apologise. Okay, so Councillor Manane in the 4.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. Item 7 is the annual financial report for the year ended 30 June 2020, to be moved by Councillor Aitken and seconded by Councillor Grisbeck. Thank you, Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. I'll try not to get as passionate on this particular issue as what I did on the last one, because it is actually just talking about financial numbers, even though I am a qualified accountant with a bachelor and a master and a CPA and all these other things. But I'll leave that aside, because it doesn't mean anything unless you can actually make sure that you understand what's actually being presented before you. What I can tell the community is that our underlying financial position for 1920 was a surplus of $84,090 million. And that was mainly because we actually received about $90 million in transfer of assets from open space from developers. So we actually got new roads, footpaths, public open space and drainage infrastructure that gave us that particular surplus. However, the recurrent operating result of the council was a $17.8 million deficit for the 1920 financial year. And in fact, it would have been worse if it wasn't for the fact that we received a $10 million early payment under the Victorian Financial Assistance Grants from the state government in 2021. We were supposed to receive it, and 50% or $10 million was actually paid in the 1920 financial year. What the community probably wants to know is, what impact did COVID make on our 1920 financial figures? Well, in fact, it made a $10.5 million impact. Those impacts were associated with our refunds and our rent waivers, our fees and charges that we suspended, our free parking, which has been a well-received initiative in the CBD, and our loss of income for revenue at our leisure and childcare centres between March and the 30th of June. So it has cost the community significantly, and it certainly is continuing to cost the community after the 1st of July. Our total borrowings in 1920 as well too, we actually went from $65.8 million to $82.6 million. We actually borrowed an additional $25 million and we paid back $8.2 million. An important thing for those people that want to get in, that are nominating for council, to understand the size of the business. Council has a total assets at the end of 1920 of $2.8 billion. And that's actually why we've got such a huge asset maintenance and renewal program for the City of Greater Geelong, because we are a massive business and a massive asset balance sheet owner in the City of Greater Geelong and Victoria for that matter. So what happens next? Well, if Council accepts this particular financial report and endorses that, the Mayor and myself get to put our signature on the financial report. That'll become an historic document, but we will present this to the Victorian Auditor General, who will take the report from us, and that concludes the 1920 financial year for the City of Greater Geelong. Mayor Asher.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Very well said. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was going to call you Madam Asher then. Madam Mayor, so yes, it's great. It's a great opportunity for me to second this report as the annual financial report for 1920. It's probably one of the last financial years which will look anything like normal, at least for the next few years to come, given what we're going through at the moment. As Councillor Aitken had says, we had a surplus of 84.9 million, and he articulated the reasons why we had a surplus. Some of the things that I wanted to mention was the capital program last year was 122.9 million, and it was made up of some things which, for example, our roads replaced or new roads was 21 million, and we had integrated childcare centres that we did last financial year, which is in Corio and in Drysdale. Some pavilion upgrades. We've had footpaths and bike paths in, nearly $5.5 million worth of those. Would like to also say that the annual reports did go to the Audit and Risk Committee, and it was endorsed to come back to Council as a certification of the financial statements, and the Chair of the Audit Committee, Jeff Harry, did say that this is one of the best comprehensive reports that he has read from the City of Greater Geelong for a long time. So I'd really like to congratulate the team, the finance team, that have done an amazing job. It is not easy doing the books for $1 billion business, and I'd like to say, as much as Councillor Aitken and I don't agree on gambling, but we do agree on the financial outcome for the city, and I'd like to thank him as Chair for the last 12 months. Thank you.
Well said, Madam Deputy. Any other comments on the annual financial report? Councillor Manane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The performance statement does reveal the strong financial position of Council in terms of our trading, our balance sheet strength and our formidable cash position. That's not a doubt. However, I'd like really the Council to be very forthright with the community with respect to the financial challenges that are ahead, especially the events of the last 6 months. And in terms of these accounts, the events since 30th of June, which will be known as subsequent events when you look at commercial accounts from a business perspective. I understand it's Council intention to make comment in the annual financial report, and I'm comfortable that we're doing that. But equally, I believe there could have been made in the performance statement itself. Because I think there are a lot of things there are some things that have happened since the 30th of June, and there are other matters that I think are underlined in the report that could have future impact on trading and on balance sheet. And I won't go through them all individually, but they are of a wide range. And if I was a banker in my past life, reading this report, I would like not only to know what the number is at the 30th of June, I would like to know what the future is, and I would expect the directors of the company, or in our case the councillors, to give a very transparent picture of the years going forward and how they should be read into these reports. None of the items, I guess, individually or in aggregate, affect any financial viability of council because we're in a strong position. But I think we have an obligation to be very transparent to the community that the future capacity for us to meet all of the community expectations may be different in the next couple of years than has been the course of action in past years. And so I'd like to think that in our narrative, whether it be in the financial statement, the annual report, or the performance statement, we are very clear with respect to where we sit, where we see our future in the next 2 years, and our financial capacity to meet obligations and the expectations of the community. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Manane. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I guess what I'd like to suggest tonight is that it's clear that the way that council will operate in the future needs to change, and we can't just be reliant on the revenues that we've been generating our funding from to remain the same into the future. Every business that's gone through COVID has had to change and look at the way that they operate in the future, and council will need to do the same. As I've said it before, and it's not just related to parking, but just relying on fines and fees can be quite antiquated, and it's shown during COVID that it's not sustainable. One, the community doesn't have the money to be able to pay a lot of those charges, and two, they're not there to be had anyway because people are not visiting the CBD, they're not parking in the CBD like they were before. We need to become more innovative in the services that we provide and those that we don't provide, so that we can be sustainable into the future and that we can sustain pandemics of any kind. So we really need to be looking at what we're delivering on. The environment, sustainability plays a big part in that. We've talked about that previously, and the great opportunities that are out there for society and a council if we get smarter and invest more in that space. We've seen presentations of that recently as a council group in how we can involve ourselves in smart technology that not only looks after our environment and protects our environment, but also helps us to develop new businesses within council and outside of council. It's creating hubs for that to occur in our city that will see us become a lot more mature in our thinking and generate revenues from things that are not traditional, like a parking meter or a parking fine. Rates have to be looked at differently. We've been told by many groups and individuals that the way that we apply our rates is no longer appropriate, and that ours are becoming much higher than many other municipalities, even larger municipalities than ours. I know there's been some work that we've done in this council to look at the way that we rate different groups, whether it be farming, whether it be commercial, whether it be residential, but a lot more has to be done in that space. Lastly, just to stick to the topic, I think the Capital Works program has been impressive. As I've said on many occasions, I encourage us to continue to invest in infrastructure, particularly road replacement and construction and drainage and things of that nature. If I remember rightly, some 4 years ago, I think already then we were about $30 million behind in our drainage. So I commend the funding that we're putting into Capital Works.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Any other comments on the annual financial report? I'll just make a quick one to say thank you to the team for all the work they've put into it. It's been a much more streamlined process, and as the Madam Deputy pointed out, the Audit and Risk Committee, which I'm a member of also, we're very pleased with this, and it was a real credit to the team for simplifying and streamlining what's been done in previous years. So well done to all. Councillor Aitken to close.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. Look, I will have take up the opportunity because it is in my notes to talk about the future. We are under significant financial pressure because of the COVID environment that we're operating under. We're looking at a minimum of about $30 million deficit for the 2021 financial year, and that is associated with our COVID supports and our collapse in income associated with the restrictions that have been put in place, and also reflection about rate collections are under pressure, and it reflects the community's capacity to be able to pay rates, which is exactly what Councillor Contel has mentioned as well too. All of those impacts are going to have cash flow implications for the organisation and the City of Greater Geelong. Everybody thinks the government can just print cash. Well, at the local government level, we actually can't do that. We are going to have to actually watch and monitor our cash flow as an organisation because of the environment that we're operating under. We should also understand that we're actually undertaking record borrowings because our major investment associated with the new administration building that's being constructed in Mercer Street as the council as well too. So what we do need to do is keep an eye on our quarterly reports, see the strategic impact that is actually being made on the organisation, and make sure we make the right strategic decisions as councillors in terms of managing our responsibilities and the financial responsibilities that we do have. I mean, this is my first financial year as the Chair of Finance. I suppose I'd just say to the community, you're lucky you've got a councillor that believes in Keynesian economics and not Friedman, because I'm a spender and I believe in deficits, because I believe that when the community needs support, that's actually when council and governments should actually be supporting their community. And that's certainly what's happening in the City of Greater Geelong at the present time. We are spending money to support our community, and we will continue to do that. And I too want to acknowledge the finance team, because this was their first year as well too. Narelle and Karen in particular have done an absolutely fantastic job with their first financial year with the City of Greater Geelong.
You've been muted, Councillor Aitken. You almost got it in there, but well done. Thank you. Very well said, and congratulations again to the team. So we'll put this one to the vote, the annual financial report. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 8 is the prevention of single-use plastics policy, to be moved by Councillor Mansfield and seconded by Councillor Contel. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Now I just have to get my notes up. Sorry, I'm trying to juggle between screens here. So firstly, I'd just like to say that I'm really pleased to see this policy finally coming back to council after my notice of motion on this matter in 2018. And this follows on from the Plastic Wise Action Plan and our Waste and Resource Recovery Strategy that we endorsed earlier this year. It has taken some time to develop this policy, but I believe this reflects the depth of the assessment and the audit work that's been done across what is really a massive organisation to work out the best approach to this issue for the City of Greater Geelong. And I would like to thank our officers, in particular Guy, Rodney and their teams for their effort on this matter. This is an issue that the community feels really strongly about. We continue to get correspondence about it regularly from members of the community. You know, I think it's strongly felt across Geelong that they want to, residents want to see our beautiful bays, oceans, rivers, wetlands and parks protected from single-use plastics. And the broader impacts on the environment and climate change that single-use plastics have. There's certainly a lot more that we can do, but I believe this is a great start, and I really look forward to this policy evolving over time. In Australia, we use tons of single-use plastics every year, and as we've discussed before, they're made from non-renewable fossil fuels. They're only used for a few minutes before being disposed of. These are things like your plastic water bottles, straws, takeaway containers, and once they've been used, they're often thrown away, and they can take many hundreds of years to degrade. While some plastics can be recycled, Victorians only currently recycle about a quarter of our plastic waste. So there's still 3/4 of it that is going into landfill. So like with all landfill, like with all waste, the best way to tackle the issue is to try to avoid making it in the first place. And if we can put in place a whole range of measures that discourage the use of single-use plastics across our organisation, that will make a difference. This policy outlines measures to reduce waste, not only from our own activities, but also to support events that are held in the municipality and on our land, as well as looking at our procurement policy and the goods and services that we procure as a council. We're looking at all of those areas to see how we can reduce the impact of single-use plastics across the municipality. And look, we did receive some feedback just over recent days about this particular policy. And just to touch on the comments that were raised, one issue was that there are no timelines included in this policy. However, those timelines are addressed in the action plan that Council has endorsed, as well as our waste and resource recovery strategy. So the timelines for implementation of this policy, which it runs over about a 2-year period, they're all outlined in those documents. And the other thing that was mentioned was that our event guides should be updated to reflect this. And I'm informed that that process has already been undertaken to update our event guides. One of the challenges we're facing at the minute with COVID is that because of concerns around health and safety and hygiene, there probably has been a bit of a pivot back to single-use plastics. And I think one of the challenges going forward will be, working out ways we can address those health and safety concerns. I know a lot of businesses are managing to do that. They're taking extra precautions, but doing it in a responsible way to reduce the risk of COVID transmission. It's really important that this doesn't lead to, us falling back on what might seem like an easy short-term strategy, but has impacts in the long run. There are ways of managing our health and safety around COVID without necessarily resorting to more single-use plastics. So that is one of the challenges we'll face going forward. But overall, I think this is a really good start for us, and I look forward to seeing where this goes.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Mansfield, for your leadership on this one. Look, I just find this as to be a really practical policy. This is the type of work that I enjoy seeing happen in the whole environmental and sustainability portfolio area, is simple, tangible policies, programs that have an immediate effect if executed right. There's not a lot to explain. It's just really starting to use utensils, starting to use all those products that we use on a daily basis, cups and knives and forks and straws, as Councillor Mansfield has already stated, in a more sustainable manner. All businesses are doing it. It actually amazes us that it's taken us so long perhaps to get to this point, because everyone's doing it. And notwithstanding what Councillor Mansfield said about COVID, businesses and organisations are dealing with that. It's not a reason to, as Councillor Mansfield said, to slip back into old habits, because there is no need for it. You can still practice good hygiene and not have to use single-use plastic. So I think it's a great little policy, one that can be expanded on in the future with other elements of local government life, whether it be electronic archiving and the reduction of printing, things of that nature. So I applaud the policy, and I think it's a good start.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to Councillor Asher for bringing this to the chamber. I couldn't agree more. We need to do more, do as much as we possibly can to phase out the use of single-use plastics, because as Councillor Mansfield said, they get used once or maybe twice, and then they go into landfill. So it's great that the city is out in front in doing this. But in saying that, the state and federal governments need to do that as well and get on board. So it's one thing for us to do it as a council, but state and federal governments need to pick up the slack as well. Perhaps introducing some legislation to phase out single-use plastics altogether. We need to change, and we are changing, and it is becoming more mainstream now that you just don't use single-use plastics. I certainly get there's a bit of confusion out there as to what goes in recycling and what doesn't, and certainly single-use plastics, you can't recycle them; they don't go in the recycling bin. But there's that confusion out there as what is a single-use plastic, and I've been out to the green waste out in Anarchy, and one of the things you see floating around out there is single-use plastic bags just flying through the air, just hundreds and thousands of pieces of them, and it's just something that doesn't need to be. So I certainly commend Councillor Mansfield on bringing this to council. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Councillor Murray, then Councillor Harwood.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, whilst this policy is about eliminating the single-use plastics in the council operations, in our facilities, at our events, across the whole city of Greater Geelong, and it demonstrates some leadership by the council in eliminating the use of these single-use plastics. I really just don't think we've gone far enough with this. I support it and I will vote for this, but I believe we've missed a real opportunity here to make a statement as a council group. I don't think this really changes the mindset, this policy, and I think if we want to advocate that we're clever and creative, I think this is small steps, and I think we had the opportunity here to really take some giant strides and make a statement about single-use plastics. We have, but we haven't shouted it from the rooftop. We've just sort of whispered it. So I'm a little bit disappointed, but I understand it's little steps. But I just think, the stats are staggering in relation to single-use plastics. More than 8 billion kilos gets washed into the ocean every year. 40% of that is packaging, which is used once and thrown away. Plastic bags used on average was 12 minutes. In the US, 500 million straws discarded every day. In Australia, 50,000 takeaway coffee cups every half hour. And this will affect our events, the Geelong major events, the events that are held across the municipality. You can imagine Paco Festa with no single-use plastics. This is what we really have to strive to achieve. So, yes, this is great, but personally, I think it could have been a whole lot better. But I'm supportive of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. I'll just draw councillors' attention to the work done by the state government in recent times, the circular economy, which deals with things like single-use plastics and many other things. And it basically talks about, again, the reduction, the reuse, the recycling of waste in general. I think that's a really good guide to where our council should be going. It deals with things like container deposit schemes and other like projects which are going to have very substantial benefits to our environment and to our community. So I just mentioned again, the circular economy is worth research and reading, and it will give a whole further dimension to how we view waste and how we should be dealing with waste, and in particular single-use products, which we need to eliminate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. I do agree with the policy, and I will be voting for it. I think one of the priorities is for the city to guide event organisations and organisers to eliminate the single-use plastics. And I just hope that we can find a way that will not make this cost extra for our event holders. We know how much margins they have from a community events perspective. So I think what I would like to see in the report that comes back every 12 months is whether it was a difficult or expensive exercise for the community groups in Geelong. I think it is going to be a progressive change, and I hope that we would encourage all of the organisers to progress to that point. I think there might be some unintended consequences, not different to the no pegs on the ground at the Bellarine agricultural show, where it actually caused a lot of extra funding required to meet that target. So I'm hoping that the organisation can actually assist event organisers, etc., of events in the city to maybe obtain these at a quality price, maybe in bulk or something like that. But I'm sure the officers will come up with something that is really, good for both for the community and for the environment.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to also voice my support for this. We can't overestimate or underestimate, rather, just how devastating single plastics are for our community and environment. As a Belmont ward councillor and an avid beachgoer, I cannot remember the last time I went for a walk along the beach or a swim and did not see a piece of plastic, or multiple rather, that need to be picked up before heading home. And I implore everyone in the community that if you have to walk in nature or anywhere of our wonderful spaces, and if you see, a bit of litter here and there, please pick it up and put it in the bin. But we're already seeing so many events and events organisers make fantastic strides in this place. I want to shout out the National Celtic Festival in Port Arlington. Last year, when they were held, they had a fantastic scheme where they were single plastic use free. With many food stores as well, people could go up, you pay a deposit, and you got a reusable cutlery and plate, and then you were able to have your food from multiple stores, and then you give it back at the end of the event. And that whole event, actually, talking to the event organisers, they managed to compact all their waste for the event into, it was like 3 or 4 garbage bags for the whole thing. It was incredible, the progress that's been made in this area. So I certainly do agree with all the words said by the councillors. It's a fantastic base, including the words that, should we go further in this? And there's definitely something that we should be entertained as council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Any other councillors? Councillor Mason.
Very quickly, Mayor Asher, I just endorse very much what everyone said, and especially about the Celtic Festival that Councillor Sullivan took the words out of my mouth. But look, what hasn't been said is the amount of advocacy we need to do, because we can't all do it on our own. As Councillor Grisbeck just said, it is going to cost locally unless there are national and even international policies. A lot of the packaging that we use is actually imported, so it gets very, very complicated. And so it does need international and national action, and it needs grassroots advocacy from us and from our local government. And I would like also to point out the natural environment is filled now with microparticles of plastic, and they end up in the organs and the flesh of the animals and the fish and the birds, and ultimately in our own bodies. And so there is a really big long-term health effect as well. So there's so much on this plastic. I just endorse all of the comments that have been said. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other councillors? Councillor Aitken.
Yeah, look, I haven't had a go on this one, Mayor Asher. It's been a good and long debate. Look, I actually don't support some of the comments that we're not showing leadership and advocacy in this. Well, I actually think Councillor Mansfield initially and Councillor Contal have actually done a fantastic job to bring forward this policy towards the broader community and the council. and they should be congratulated for what they've actually been doing to bring before us tonight. What we do know is that council and local governments have limited regulatory ability in this particular area, and this policy has actually tried to find opportunities how we can influence what we do have some capacity over. The reality is that our packaging agenda is controlled by federal legislation, and the reality is our recycling capacity is actually governed under state. And of course, an example of that is the container packaging levy that Geelong Council has actually said we want to be a test and first location in Victoria to actually do that as well too. What we're actually doing with this policy that Councillor Mansfield and Contal have actually led is they're actually saying we've got to do the best way we can do things in terms of single-waste plastic is actually lead by our own example as the council, and that's exactly what the policy is attempting to do. And then we're trying to influence other areas that we have, which is what councils have mentioned as well, in that we do fund significantly into major events and our small event grant programs. And what we're trying to do with that is put conditions on those funding requirements so that we can introduce single-use plastic policies in those event areas as well too. So I think this is a significant step for the council. I see it as leadership by the council to show the broader community example what we can do, and I thank in particular councillors Mansfield and Contal for their participation and leadership on this particular policy position.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Any others on this one? Or we'll go back to Councillor Mansfield to close. Thank you, Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Ash, and thank you to my fellow councillors for your supportive comments on this one, and for everyone who's had a contribution to this over its development. I do actually accept that it's certainly something where we could be, can always be going harder with things like this. There are examples that we've been made aware of in other councils, certain large events that have really shown, some fantastic leadership and shown how this can be done really well. In terms of our events policy, really what we have done is taken a gradual approach. It's all about supporting events and guiding them and assisting them to reduce their plastic waste rather than it being a blanket ban. And that was designed to avoid some unintended consequences. One of the things that has happened in other locations when they've banned single-use plastics is other packaging forms have been introduced, such as packaging that's technically biodegradable, but actually, unless you have you put it into an appropriate incinerator or processing facility to biodegrade it, it will just end up in landfill and can take just as long as regular plastic to break down. So you can end up with unintended consequences if you push too hard without thinking through the impact. So although this is probably a gentler approach than some would like, I think it's, as I said, a great start and something we can really build on, and something as a council I think we can be proud of. But there's always more work we can be doing. So I look forward to seeing where this goes.
Great, thank you. We'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, item 9 is the Environment Strategy 2020 to 2030 to be moved by Councillor Contal and seconded Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Contal.
Thanks, Councillor Asher and Mayor Asher. Yes, look, tonight we're seeking to endorse the Environmental Strategy 2030. This is another one that, as Councillor Mansfield just said, you could always do more. There's so much more you could do, and we could be criticised for not doing enough. But it's another step forward in a policy and a strategy that will only improve the way that we operate as a council, particularly in terms of our sustainability and the environment. So the strategy and also the associated action plan have been developed to replace the environmental management strategy of 14 and 17. And this action plan is guided by the response and the significant input that we had from community. We had a significant community engagement program, had public consultation, and in fact we received some 40 submissions from the community and stakeholders in relation to the policy. The development of the strategy was a key action contained with our recently adopted sustainability framework, which was actually championed by our current mayor. And the implementation of the environment strategy will support some key priorities that were also established by the same sustainability framework. And the strategy identifies some of the following key areas, such as a move towards a zero emission and a climate ready city and region, to create greener and community spaces, to contribute to the circular economy by reducing waste, as Councillor Harwood referred to earlier on. Also to protect, enhance and restore our region's biodiversity, and also better integrated water management through planning and design. Some of the practical outcomes of this was, in fact, the previous policy, and to develop a plastic-wise program that includes the phasing out of single-use plastics across the organisation by 2022. We just talked about that. Developing the water waste management guidelines, and also for planning permit applications, to guide applicants to prepare a plan to manage waste and recycling needs of residential and commercial properties. Also to work with the government agencies, local government and organisations to increase the use of recycled materials in roads and building materials and other infrastructure across our region. Again, that plays into that circular economy. We've spoken about that before, whether it be playground equipment, whether it be our roads, our crushed concrete for footpaths and things of that nature. And to advocate strongly and loudly to the state government for the introduction of a Victorian container deposit scheme. And we know that there's been a lot said about that. Some of the initiatives that we've seen in the budget, even the 2021 budget, where we invested some $100,000 for the planting of the 1 million trees for the Geelong region. These are all part of the strategy. So these goals will help guide the city's decision making and its operations and programs to reduce the environmental impacts and to build resilience to the climate risks and enhance our urban and natural environments. So with that said, I'll leave it to others to talk to further, particularly Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Contell, for outlining, the broad context of this policy, of this document that's before us. This is really the culmination of several years of hard work by our environment team at the City of Greater Geelong, and I'd really like to thank them for all the work that's gone into this. There's been quite extensive community consultation throughout the development, and it's something that several councillors I know have been quite actively involved in at different points in time, and it's been great to see this strategy evolve through that consultation process, and this document has recently been out for a final round of consultation, and again we've listened to the community and made some adjustments to it, and I'm hopeful that while, as has been said, there are areas where we need to do, we can do more. This is a really good foundation on which to base our work in the environment space over the coming years. Some of the key highlights from the community feedback that I'd just like to point out were that action on climate change was seen by the community as the highest priority goal, And although we've outlined some really, I think, commendable targets for our own operations on climate action, and that's, including that we want all of our operations to be carbon neutral by 2025, and we've got a range of other measures there. One of the things that we consistently hear is how do we help the rest of the community, the rest of the municipality reduce their emissions? We're only 1% as an organisation, so how do we get the other 99% down? And what I'd really encourage people who are interested in this to do is engage in, we're developing a climate change response plan, and that will outline how we're going to do that piece of work. So please engage in that when that process comes up for community consultation, because that's where we will set some of those broader targets and goals and actions. But it is something we need to do. Other bits of community feedback: people really want to protect our landscapes, our biodiversity and water sources. The community is passionate about being involved in our environmental protection efforts. And again, I think this is something where we have a real opportunity to grow, and hopefully with the sustainability framework, with this environment strategy, with the carbon emissions strategy, all of these different plans, or climate change response plan, all of these things working together. If we can do that in partnership with the community, I think we will see some really fantastic outcomes for our region. But that's the key challenge, working with our community.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Any other councillors want to comment on this one? Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say that, whilst I agree with the policy and I'll be voting with it, I did really like to see that the increased commitments to collaborate with the traditional owners in this space to connect those cultural and biodiversity links, I thought was is really warranted, and I really feel that's the start of the link in relation to involving them in all of those issues, both from a culture and an environment perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy. Any other councillors want to talk? Councillor Aiken.
Mayor Asher, thank you very much. Look, I support this particular policy that's coming before council. As has been highlighted, the environment is the issue that we've discussed the most with sustainability over the last 15 months. I'm really proud of what the council has achieved in that space. There's some real meaningful strategies that actually have been developed in relation to the environment and sustainability. And this is another good example of one of those, because the community can actually measure us against the targets that we're establishing in this particular strategy and document tonight. We are saying that we want to be carbon neutral by 2025, so we can be measured against that. The officers can work towards operationally meeting those requirements. I'm really proud as the Chair of City Services that we are really working hard to look at our light fleet vehicles and actually trying to introduce zero emission sources for those particular vehicles. And there's a real emphasis to try to look at hybrid. And I hope that in 18 months to 3 years' time that we're actually a leader in electrical as well too, in terms of our vehicles under this particular policy. So these measurements are identified. The community it's now up to the community to keep the administration and their elected officials honest to meet those particular targets, and I'm really pleased that we're actually putting them out there and saying this is what we actually want to achieve.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Just a couple of quick points I was just going to make. I think it's important to also note that our strategy is 2020 to 2030 with a whole range and raft of strategies and action plans in there. I think it's important to note that this should be an evolving strategy as technology changes and we find new ways and new ideas that are going to help our environment even more and reduce our waste. We need to be nimble and adapt quickly to new technologies and ideas as they come along. I think also it's worth noting that our junior council has been very strong in the environmental statements that they've made the last 2 years, they've put a very strong focus on the environment, among a few other things, but this has been one of their main focuses has been the environment and how they've brought ideas and their thoughts and their requests to us as a council to be strong in this particular space and to be very conscious of where we stand. I think the city is a very strong influencer. We're an educator. We're ultimately a leader in this particular space of the environment. I think we need to be cognizant of that and make sure that we continue to advance every opportunity that we have to gain, I guess, further ground in our environmental strategy. And it might be the way we're talking tonight. We're talking like it's an emergency. So maybe the next council will come out and say it's a climate emergency, and that'll form part of it as well. But I do support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and thank you, Councillor Harwood, who most just then reminded us of our youth and their aspirations and how we really shouldn't disappoint them. And I have to say that I feel really close to this strategy. As Deputy for the Environment Portfolio for my first 2 years, I did follow this closely during its development and carry over from the previous strategy. And I do applaud the stamina and resilience of all involved, especially the staff and the community, and of course the councillors. Madam Mayor, our natural environment is precious. It's been drastically damaged and it requires restorative action. The natural environment is under threat as never before. And not only do we need to build resilience to risks, as has been mentioned, the fundamental thing is to do whatever we can to reduce the risks. Some of this is done through local government action, and this document gives us excellent guiding principles. And as Councillor Contel said, there is much more to do. The strategy will be supported by subordinate plans, including the Climate Change Response Plan that's just been mentioned, and the updated biodiversity strategy, which we expect next year, the current stormwater strategy, the waste and resource recovery strategy, and the urban forest strategy. All of these need to be integrated. And perhaps once we have DAL, the distinctive areas and landscapes, why not have a rural and coastal landscape strategy, or a rural ecology plan? And as we said, there's more to do. But many of the targets have been mentioned already. The carbon neutral by 2025, the development of an urban ecology plan by 2025 is one of our targets. And to review planning policies and processes to support the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the IPCC 1.5 degree pathway to 2025 is also another target. So there's hope and a positive future for the environment. I think we're doing our bit locally. Many locals can make it global, and global action is also sorely needed. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other comments on this one? No? I'll just quickly congratulate the team. I think this has been a very long and well thought out strategy and process. We went out for consultation for an extended period on this one as well. And I'll just follow up on Councillor Aitken's point about hybrid vehicles. It's something that I'm pretty keen on as well, electric vehicles, and the mayoral vehicle is now a hybrid vehicle. I requested that pretty much as soon as I became mayor, and it arrived about 3 weeks ago, and I can only speak very highly of how efficient it is. I don't know really how well they stack up on the life cycle analysis, but certainly from a fuel efficiency and pollution point of view, they're pretty good. So we're a step in the right direction. So we'll go back to Councillor Contel to close.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm not quite sure what Councillor Harwood's referring to. I thought we actually all voted on climate change being global emergency, so I'm not sure what else has to be said in that regard. If it's not a global emergency, I don't know what it is then. Can't be any stronger in your statements than that, I could imagine. I'd like to thank everyone that's been involved. First of all, Councillor Mansfield, because she led it as the first portfolio holder. But obviously we know as councillors we can advocate and influence and have input, but it's really the team on the ground. So Guy Wilson-Brown for his leadership, and of course Rodney Thomas and the environmental team, and particularly also the communications team for getting this out into the public, allowing for people to know it's out there, and also helping with that community consultation. Thanks very much to all of you guys for the work that you've put in over many years. In closing, I guess the strategy will help the city improve in environmental performance of the significant urban developments, and also in our own operations, including our buildings, our built assets, our fleet. There's been discussion about what we're doing there, and Madam Mayor just mentioned her own vehicle, and also natural assets and public open spaces that we manage, and the services that we deliver. So with that, Madam Mayor, I'll hand it over to you to put it to the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. So we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, next item 10 is the tree management policy, and I believe Councillor Mason would like to move an amendment. Okay, Councillor Mason, I'll get you to read out your amendment and then we'll have a seconder. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Well, the motion is to adopt the draft tree management policy, attachment 2, and the amendment is an addition and requires the policy to be reviewed no later than the 30th of September 2022.
Okay, thank you. Anyone second that one? Councillor Aitken, thank you. Okay, Councillor Mansfield, feel free to talk to the amendment.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. This has been out for community consultation for 4 weeks, a relatively short time, and there have been constraints due to the COVID-19 situation. And of course, in the ideal world, this consultation would have been longer, and we did have the additional constraints also of council elections and the caretaker period. So this document is informed in part by the Biodiversity Strategy 2003, and that's due to be updated next year. So it would be prudent to review the details, the interpretation and implementation of this policy soon after this. And so I think 30th of September 2022 deadline would be seen at this stage to be reasonable. And so, Madam Mayor, this document provides a framework for the management of trees within the City of Greater Geelong and supports the objectives and vision of the Urban Forest Strategy 2015 and the Sustainability Framework 2020. It establishes when Council will plant, prune or remove a tree and what measures must be undertaken to protect and enhance the tree population. This policy applies to all trees within the City of Greater Geelong located on council-owned and managed land or subject to protection by the City of Greater Geelong planning scheme, and it applies to all council departments, government entities, utility companies, landowners, developers and community members. And this also includes the rural and coastal areas. Madam Mayor, it is important to have a tree management policy without which there will be inconsistencies in management and community understanding, and that would pose the risk of conflict. This policy has many strengths. It considers First Nation culture and heritage and the City Biodiversity Strategy 2003, and it's especially relevant to our stated aim of planting 1 million trees to mitigate climate change. There's a wide range of management responsibilities which impinge upon a spread of council departments, and so the guidelines need to be carefully applied to many aspects. This includes planning, which includes all strategic development and construction work within the municipality, and the inclusion of canopy trees of Indigenous and native tree species and enhanced biodiversity, and tree planting, which will require careful coordination, maintenance of standards and compliance with many areas of state and national legislation, and of course, greater tree planting on private land. And then there's another component which is equally important. It's the management and maintenance of what we already have. And so we have to look at this policy, looks at tree maintenance and requires skilled arborists whose decisions are based on national scientific standards. It's also considers tree protection and delivers where developers must comply with Australian standards, and tree removal and tree root interactions with public and private infrastructure. All of these are areas which are considered. And ultimately, as well, the enhancement of native vegetation and biodiversity, which is a very important element of our One Planet policy and our obligations under the national and state biodiversity legislation. So, Madam Mayor, I'll leave it to Councillor Aitken to take over.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. Look, I'll try and be brief because I actually don't like being muted. What I will say is that in the last 12 months, I've actually been chair of a new portfolio and reintroduced portfolio of city services, and I'm actually really proud of all the staff that work in that particular area, because this document is actually going to give them some guidance about what they have to do. We have 70,000 street trees. We have 40,000 park trees, and I'm really proud that the team has maintained them really well in the last 12 months, and in particular during the COVID environment. Not one single member of our city services team has actually stopped work during COVID-19. They've continued the magnificent responsibilities that they have, and I'm very proud of what the team has achieved. And in terms of strategic stuff that city services has done under the tree management policy, during 2019-20, we had a target of planting 1,850 trees, and the team exceeded that by planting 3,255 trees. And that's been done by all our depots from Drysdale, Belmont, the Botanic Gardens, Cardinia Park, and the lovely banks on Anarchy Road. So well done to all the significant number of staff that are employed in that particular area and responsibility of council. Trees are important, and that's why we've got this particular policy. I'm really proud that the council is actually also ensuring that we try and have a suburban tree canopy in our urbanised areas of Geelong, where we have more than 25% of all of our public space and open space actually has tree canopy. These are really significant strategic baseline requirements that the council is actually saying that we want to achieve for our community. The trees are the lungs of Geelong, and I'm really proud that we're doing everything to make sure that we have the healthiest lungs in Australia, in fact.
Well said, Councillor Aitken. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. The one thing I agree with Councillor Aitken tonight is that I do agree that trees are important in our community. The tree issues do become very topical in the community, though. So we talk about, amenity and view and access, and most of the queries that we get around trees is falling trees, damage to property. So, whilst I think this policy is good to have in place, there is going to need to be a little bit of flexibility. Trees such as the sugar gums in McClelland Avenue and also Keys Road in Lara are a great example where these sugar gums will fall without a storm or a breath of wind whatsoever. So under this policy, that means that they can't be removed or taken out because they're not sort of they're not in ill health, and they don't show that they're dangerous until they actually fall. So I think we just need to be really careful about how we apply the policy internally, and hopefully we've got, as Councillor Aitken has said, some really good officers within that team to really understand what the consequences are of not either removing a tree, but you're making sure that it's not becoming a danger to the community or to any person individually. I do agree that we need to have a tree policy because we don't want to be removing trees just because of somebody's view out over the landscape. but we do need to make sure that there are opportunities where replacement of trees can happen because of dangerous situations. So I will be supporting this policy tonight, but I just wanted to flag that small thing there that I hope the officers are undertaking, sensibility checks when it comes to trees.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Any other comments on this one? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My fellow ward councillors, Councillor Harwood, Manane, know what my number one budget priority was. That was 1 million trees. I can see Pat smiling there, so that he agrees with me. It was my number one priority. But with all due respect to Councillor Mason, I can't support this, not because of what Councillor Mason's putting forward, but because, as he rightly said, we need some more consultation. I get so many phone calls and emails about trees and different rules. One rule for one tree and another rule for another tree. And we've got a couple in our ward, councillors Manane and Harwood, that are ongoing at the moment. And just a few days ago, down on South Valley Road, just in my place, there's a group of trees in an aged care facility. There were hundreds of trees there, and they were there since I was a child. I remember them going up and playing cricket at St Augustine's. And those 100 trees, or a couple of hundred trees, mightn't have been significant on their own, but as a group, they were significant. And the developers were allowed to remove probably 2/3 of those trees. And as a consequence, they've been quite unstable because most of them are gone. They're not sheltered by each other. And one has fallen down across and hit someone as they're walking by. So there needs to be some consistency around that. And people have talked about the canopy, which is important. We need to have a canopy across the municipality. But there seems to be overlays on trees, on some trees and not others. And I just don't understand why. There's an overlay on a peppercorn tree in Skeen Street. Peppercorn trees to me aren't that significant. Maybe they are, I don't know. Yet other trees such as Moreton Bay figs that are over 100 years old, people are allowed to cut them within an inch of their life. There doesn't seem to be any consistency, and I'd like some more consistency, and I've put requests in the portal, and I'm not getting the responses that I'm after. So with all due respect to Councillor Mason, I get it, Jim, I do, and I want more trees, not less, but I want some consistency. I mean, 3.4, it says, trees will not be pruned to facilitate views, to provide solar access to solar panels or gardens, or to reduce the impact from wildlife or noise. Yet 2 weeks ago, a tree was cut within an inch of its life just because the person that lived there wanted some more sunshine. There needs to be some consistency. So I want officers to reassure me that they're doing the right things. So I can't support it, but not for the reasons that Jim. It's not against you, Jim. It's against what the officers are trying to push forward. I need to be more clear in what's going on. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Anyone else wish to comment on this one? Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Look, I'd just like to voice my support for this tree management policy. I agree that it is a complex issue. It's something that comes up quite frequently for councillors with concerns, about all different aspects of tree management, protection, planting. But I think the whole purpose of this document is to implement a policy, so we have something that can help to guide our decisions and create a bit more clarity around how we manage these situations. We don't currently have a tree management policy. We've got lots of different approaches to managing trees, but we haven't brought them all together under one umbrella policy. So this is a great attempt to provide some of that clarity. I really support Councillor Mason's amendment about just bringing forward that timeline for review, because this is the first version of this policy. It's very likely that we we'll need to have another look at it after it's been in place for a little bit of time, and review how it's going, get some more feedback over that time from the community, and in a couple of years when it comes up for review, we'll be able to see how this policy is working for the community. But I think overall it's it's going to be a really useful document for us to guide us going forward, and for that reason I support it.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Any other comments on this one? I'll make a couple of comments. I tend to agree with pretty much all of the comments. I think everybody would agree that the whole council loves trees, and we've certainly all been very committed to the Million Trees project. I have very similar concerns to both Councillor Nelson and Councillor Grisbeck, and I'll probably lean on the Councillor Nelson side, where I probably won't support this one, and it's not because I don't appreciate the effort, but I just think the consultation, particularly during the period of COVID, hasn't been as intensive as it could have been face-to-face. I get calls about trees probably every fortnight, and that every case is different, and it's really hard to apply one rule. And I think this policy is a reasonably good attempt, and I can understand, I appreciate how much work's gone into it, and I don't expect that it won't necessarily be successful going through, but I would like to make my point that I don't think it's actually got the depth. I don't think it covers the scenarios adequately that we actually face in reality. It's really difficult to explain the consistency and the application of our policies to people, because it does seem to be subjective. It does seem to be at the discretion of certain officers and certain situations. And, I think most people do like trees, but if it's a particular tree that's posing safety issues, I've had communities come to me and groups of 60, I was thinking it was going to be just a couple of people complaining about a particular situation. There's 60 people who have all taken photos and done research and presented a case, and they haven't been heard by the officers, and it would actually not pass through this policy. They wouldn't be able to get any change affected. So I'm just not sure that the policy is the right vehicle to support the community when they need and want the changes they want. There's a few things that I see in the policy that seem to be almost a direct response to requests that I've seen the community make, to be able to say no from the officer point of view. And I think we need somehow to have more avenues to have a conversation. Maybe it's a panel decision. Maybe there's some different ways that we can manage this, rather than it just being a black and white, this will never be done, this will never happen. So I actually can't support this policy, but I do commend the team on having a fairly good attempt at making something that would get through. So that's my view. Anyone else got any other comments?
Madam Mayor, can I just ask a question?
Yep. Councillor Contel, sure.
Is there any way that we could get some middle ground so that it's not rejected? Could Councillor Mason put a time frame in for some further consultation? Or it seems such a shame to vote against this one where it's just so close.
Maybe even a review period earlier than 2022, Councillor Mason. Maybe bring it forward to 2021, so it is trialled for a year, essentially. That may be a middle ground.
Look, I'd be happy to accommodate that, but I urge caution, because the biodiversity strategy also is to be reviewed next year. And the reason I brought it in 2022 was so that we could consider the biodiversity strategy as well. This is a very complex document, in that we have to look at the maintenance and protecting what we have.
Madam Mayor, point of order. Look, we actually have got a meeting.
This is true.
It's a quick yes or no. We shouldn't be actually debating the issue, because it's actually not within the rules.
Very true. Thank you, Councillor Aitken, for pointing that out. So
I'll finish off, if you like, Madam Mayor. I urge everyone to support this policy. I think it's better to have something than nothing, and it'll give us a little bit of time now, between now and 2022, to look at the strengths and weaknesses. It's much better to have something than nothing, and I do agree that there's much more work to do. It's a very important policy which has to be integrated with other policies that we have in the institution. and there has not been yet full integration. And we do need to consider planning and planting, maintenance, protection and removal, and stakeholder responsibilities. All of these things are a broad spectrum of issues. And I think that if we don't have some policy, like if we don't pass this one tonight, we'll have nothing for the next unforeseeable future. Please support this policy now, and let's review it as soon as we can. And I think really the spirit of doing it next year might be a good idea, but really I think it's more practical to wait for until mid-2022.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. On that note, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, we need to do...
Division.
Okay. Those for? Councillor Mansfield, Sullivan, Contell, Murray, Manane, Harwood, Aitken, Grisbeck and Mason. Those against? Asher and Nelson. Thank you. Now we do need to put a vote to extend the time beyond 10 o'clock. So may I have a mover to extend beyond 10 o'clock? Councillor Grisbeck, seconded Councillor Sullivan. Thank you. All those in favour? Great. Carried. Okay.
So what about those against?
I thought I said those against. Did you? That's you. Okay. I'm not calling a division on that one. It's carried. Okay. Thank you. Item 11 is the Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan Annual Report 2019-20, to be moved by Councillor Mansfield and seconded Councillor Manane. Thank you, Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Look, this is a really comprehensive summary of a huge range of work that we've been doing as a council over the past year. It's a legislative requirement that every council has a municipal health and wellbeing plan, and a public health and wellbeing plan. And it's in some ways it's a pretty extraordinary year for public health and wellbeing. This covers a period pre-COVID, but the latter part of this report, it does start to enter into the period where we've been under COVID restrictions. And I think, going forward, our municipal health and wellbeing strategy will be a plan, and our activities in that space will be only more important, particularly when you look at one of our headline goals within our health and wellbeing strategy, and that's around mental health, and in particular the way that community connection can foster, can support mental health. Community connection, we know, has been significantly impacted by COVID-19, but I think this report shows a whole range of ways that our council has continued to try to create that community connection for people, and that might be with a lot of our events where normally people would come together. We've moved them online or looked for ways that we can still engage the community, which I think has been really important. And it's great to read. It's fantastic to read through and just see all of the different areas that council is working in to improve our health and wellbeing. Another item that's referenced in there is the work that we've started on our social housing strategy. And again, in the current context, we've discussed this before, but affordable and social housing is only going to become more important. So it's a great piece of work. It references a lot of the great work we're doing in our environment, and looking at building healthy open spaces, looking at our work to encourage physical activity like the shared trails, which I'm sure some of the other councillors would like to discuss. There's also a reference to the work we've done in terms of food relief, and again, something so important in this current context. So I think this is something that I think we can look at as a council and be really proud of. We can look at and say we're doing a whole lot of really important work to improve the health and wellbeing of our community. The whole reason I decided to get involved with local government is because I have a passion for public health, and I wanted to be involved in in helping to build a healthier community. And it's really great to see how much work local government does and can do to improve the health and well-being of our citizens. So I'll leave it at that and let other councillors make their comments. But I'd really like to thank all the staff who have been involved within Healthy Communities Department, but also across the board in implementing all the different activities that are referenced in this report.
Thank you, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Manane.
Can I just reserve, please, Mira?
Absolutely. Anybody else like to comment on this one? No? Looks like you're up, Councillor Manane. Oh, Councillor Murray.
Just when no one else put their hand up, I thought I would just say a couple of words. And I just wanted to pick something out of the annual report, and that is the swimming program trialled at the targeted refugee men out at Waterworld. And I had the absolute pleasure of being at the launch of that. And there was probably 25 to 30 men that turned up for the launch. Well, that's the numbers they expected. And at the time it was supposed to be launched, there was only about half of them there. And so there was some concern until the staff actually looked in the pool and they were already in the water. So, but it was just fantastic to see the joy on their faces. And these refugees had come from, vastly different backgrounds, but they were all together there enjoying a swim. And it's great to see that there was over 160 finished up participating in that program. And that's just one example of this, the Public Health and Wellbeing Plan. And it was a tremendous success.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Murray. Anyone else? Councillor Manane.
Thank you, Mirasha. And thank you, Councillor Mansfield, for moving this item, which I'm very, very happy to second. And thanks, Peter, for your comments. This annual report is a really excellent account of the year's achievements, and we really should take the opportunity to thank Director Robin Stevens and all her team, and it's a big team who do a great job. And Council is required to review its public health and wellbeing plan annually. And in that regard, I just want to advise that I intend to bring a notice of motion to our last meeting in September, requesting officers to bring a report back to Chamber in time for the next Council's budget for their review of the municipal health and wellbeing plan. Because as Councillor Mance has already said, it's going to be a very important piece of work going forward into 2021. The purpose of the report will be to research the impacts of COVID-19 on a whole range of areas in our community, and if appropriate, and I feel it will be, to actually establish a humanitarian fund within Council's grant program for the next budget of 2020 and 21. In the report that's just been presented tonight, and as Councillor Mansfield stated in her opening, Council have started the process of assessing in some of these areas of concern already, and she mentioned food relief and mental health, and also we've done some work in homelessness. However, this should be seen as a commencement, I think, of a fairly long journey to ensure that every Geelong resident sees a bright future for themselves in the post-COVID-19 era and the years ahead. So I'll have that out in the next few days and look forward to your response so that we can make sure that our 2021 plan for the community in community health is a very substantial part of our work in the next few years. Thank you, Marisha.
Thank you, Councillor Manane. Councillor Mansfield to close.
Thank you, Marisha, and thank you, Councillor Murray and Manane, for your input on this one. Look, I'd again like to thank Robin Stevens and the whole team at Healthy Communities Department for their work on this, and I hope that that all of the great work continues. It's going to be a tough year, but there's a lot of opportunity going forward. I think one of the things that keeps coming up in particular with respect to COVID is this issue of the impact it's having on mental health. And what this document demonstrates is that we don't always need more health services, what you typically think of as the things that you turn to if you need help with health. It's not always the doctor or the hospital or counsellor that is the answer. More services, health services, isn't always the answer. There are a whole lot of other things that contribute to our health, and arguably they make the biggest contribution. So that is having opportunities to connect with other people. It's having housing. It's having access to healthy food. It's having safe spaces where we can walk, cycle, and participate in other forms of exercise. It's community sports. All of these things are really vital to our health and well-being. And I think as part of rebuilding, I guess continuing to manage through this COVID situation, we really need to focus on, as a council, all those things that we can do to support people's health and well-being, and including their mental health. There is a lot that we can contribute, as this document demonstrates. So well done again to all the team, and more great work I'm sure will be ahead.
Beautifully timed, Councillor Mansfield. Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, item 12 is Roslyn Road Heighton Footpath Construction SRC 346, finalisation of the scheme. Moved by Councillor Harwood, seconded by Councillor Nelson. Thank you, Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. This is a recommendation to endorse the final costs and amendments to the special charge scheme for the recently completed footpath on the south side of Roslyn Road in Heighton, between Scenic Road and Remini Avenue. This is a highly used area of Scenic Road, in particular, of Roslyn Road, in particular accessing the Heighton Primary School. There's bus stops nearby, and there's the Heighton Reserve down further, and the shops along Roslyn Road. Quite simply, this has been identified as urgently required. The work has been undertaken, with the majority of the cost being borne by the city, and while 24 property owners will be asked to make a contribution through the scheme. Now, this will probably, reignite or continue the discussion around the special rate and charge scheme, but that's probably a discussion for the new council. But this particular item needs to be dealt with now, and there's also a new pedestrian refuge island at Thornhill Road intersection, which those familiar with that intersection of Thornhill and Roslyn will know how dangerous that is for pedestrians, and that has also that will ensure greater safety for the pedestrians there. So the construction of this island and the retaining walls have been fully funded by the council. So the total cost is around about 230,000 for the footpath. And what this does, it actually does add capital value to the properties, but more importantly, it gives much greater safety for the road user and for pedestrians in particular. In particular, children, as I say, accessing the Heighton Primary School. So I'll leave it there. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harwood. Councillor Nelson.
I'll reserve my right, Madam Mayor.
Okay, anyone else want to talk about this one? It's back to you, Councillor. Councillor Manane. Go for it, Councillor Manane. You're on mute.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to reinforce the comments made, this is a path that I walked every day for 20 odd years, and with the busyness of the intersection there at the corner of Roslyn Road and Roslyn Road and I'm struggling with the intersection. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. It has got very busy, and I guess the purpose here now for this particular piece of work is safety, especially with the school and all of the additional traffic. So it's long overdue, and even if council had to pay for it in total itself, it would be worth doing. So I fully support the scheme. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Manane. Anyone else? Go to Councillor Nelson. Go, Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Harwood alluded to the SRC, the Special Rate and Charge Scheme, and I'm certainly not a fan of it. I really think we should abandon this Special Rate and Charge Scheme and just put more money into the budget and fund footpaths. That makes more sense to me because we're picking winners and losers here. The majority of residents objected to this footpath. There's another footpath on the other side of the road, on the north side of the road, yet it was still built. It was built during, it was approved during council's administrative time. So I'm not putting the blame on any councillor. And every time I go up there, and I'm up there quite a bit lately, for another reason, which I'm not allowed to say, and I was up there today and I got abused by residents because they don't want the footpath. Well, I certainly don't want to pay for it, that's for sure. And I feel that the majority of beneficiaries up there are developers. They're the two big, large parcels of land up there that have had the landscape works, and they're the ones that are benefiting, not the mums and dads. So I can't support it. Yet council says it's good for the council plan because we're encouraging active transport. As Councillor Manane said quite rightly, he walks up there, or used to walk up there quite a bit. Yet there's a footpath on the other side of the road. Yet people that live in the Barrable Hills estate, and I've been complaining for years about this, can't get across to their school at Montpelier across Scenic Road. There's no footpath. Why can't we build half on one side of the road for footpaths before we start doubling up? Highton is one of those towns, one of those suburbs that has a lot of missing links. And I've complained for many years to have footpaths put in certainly around ME and Scenic Road, and fallen on deaf ears because there's only so much money in this Special Rate and Charge Scheme. So I think the next council should look at abandoning this Special Rate and Charge Scheme and spending more money on footpaths because, as Councillor Manane and everyone is saying, active transport is the way to go. And if you need to walk your kids to school and you've got no footpath, it's quite dangerous. I see mums with their prams walking down Scenic Road on the road, and that's just not right. So getting back to this one, there's already a footpath on the north side of the road, so I can't support it, and I won't support it.
Thanks, Councillor Nelson. Back to Councillor Howard to close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Footpaths are always a hot topic for councillors, and right through the region we have some areas that are developed without footpaths, some with, and it's one of those, pieces of infrastructure that we need to have. And I think the debate will continue in relation to the special charge scheme about if we don't have it, well, there's less money to build footpaths, so it's a user pay system almost. But I understand, and having had a footpath placed on my own property, and I don't use it, but I it's there, and I understand why there was a special charge scheme for that footpath to be built. But this is a conversation to continue another time. I support the recommendation on this occasion, and we'll look forward to further debate on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. We'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Okay, on to item 13 is Tower Road and Sproat Street, Port Arlington. the proposed road construction special charge scheme 294 declaration of charge to be moved by Councillor Mason and seconded by Councillor Aitken. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. This is a particular case where there doesn't appear to have been much community opposition to a special charge scheme, and it is to declare a special charge to partially fund the construction of the road sealing and curbing and channeling at 122 to 155 Tower Road and 110 to 128 Sproat Street, Port Arlington. This scheme has been prepared in accordance with all of the usual regulations, and it's in response to several residents and an action group requesting an upgrade due to recent land development and consequential increased use, dust and safety issues. Indeed, there have been 76 requests related to the road upgrade and 13 related to dust suppression issues. Madam Mayor, there have been public notices advertising the scheme, and all affected land holders have been contacted, and as I just said, there's been no subsequent submissions. There are three small projects which will be implemented at the same time. One is the construction of sealed road in Tower Road. Another one is construction of curb and channel in Tower Road. And the third one is construction of curb and channel in Sproat Street. And all of that adds up to about $383,000, where 23% of the cost will be covered by the landowners and 77% by the city. As I said, there was no formal submissions, but at a later stage now, if there is an objection, it can be made through VCAT. So the costs to the individual landholders will be in Sproat Street, it will be arranged between $1,290 and $2,581, and in Tower Road, $759 to $4,473. Madam Mayor, special charges are the primary source of revenue of the council road and footpath construction programs to ensure the ongoing delivery of a range of important transport services to the local community. We have to recognise that this is difficult times, in fact, times of an emergency, and it's recognised that significant hardship can be experienced by members of the community. So the city will consider an application for financial hardship relief confidentially and objectively. I commend the motion and the work done by the staff of City Services.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Aitken.
Yeah, look, I don't have too much further to add on this particular one. Look, Councillor Nelson in the previous item has actually talked about the impact that these special charges make on the community. In this case, 30 landowners are going to get on average a bill of $2,888 each. But what we have to take into consideration is that they've already been advised about what their potential liability is, and council did receive no formal submissions. So we have to look at that. The fact that the broader community through council is funding 70% of this special rates and charges, no formal submissions, therefore we should proceed with it. But as is normally the case, I suspect when a person first receives their actual bill in the mail, it will come as bill shock for them, and being a smaller community, Port Arlington, it won't take long for 30 people to actually communicate with each other that this is a significant financial burden during COVID time. On balance, I support it, but I acknowledge that it will give some grief to community when they finally get their bills associated with this special rates and charges scheme.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Good point. Do you have any other comments, Councillor Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank the councillors before me for their comments as well. I'm personally very glad to see this section of the road, of both roads, finally sealed off, have gutters and all that in place. It's actually a quite a safety issue, that part of Tower Road at the moment, especially, and Spur Street as well, with the increased traffic in this area from the rise developments on the other side of the Tower Road hill. Tower Road has now gone from a average access road to the people who live on it to now a thoroughfare road. It's a thoroughfare for people trying to get to the new estates, which have all gone up over the last couple of years. The other end of the extension of the road has had safety measures put in place, speed humps and whatnot. I wouldn't mind seeing some more safety measures included in this part of Tower Road as well, not just sealing, but actually, some upgrades to make it safer for the community. Because, as we get in the more rural suburbs, we get a lot of people who imagine that the speed limit could be 80 or 90 or 100 when really it is in fact 60. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Nelson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, this is where this one's different, because the community actually want this footpath here. As Councillor Sullivan said, it's a developing area as you come across the hill and go down towards the other side of town. And so the people want it. And there's no footpath on either side of the road. So it's a good outcome for the people down there. But my only concern is that it'll get used as a rat run, Councillor Sullivan, to get across the Bellarine, which probably they're doing already, I'm guessing.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Any other comments on this one? Back to Councillor Mason to close.
I've got nothing further to add, Mayor Asher.
Okay, lovely. We'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, that brings us to the highlight of the night, the first of three. Item 14 is a revocation of flood-prone area designation of new lots at Lara Central Estate, Stage 8, to be moved by Councillor Grisbeck and seconded by Councillor Aitken. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, and I do take Councillor Monane's lead. We have one or two out in Lara tonight where we're revoking the flood designation. This one is in relation to the Lara Central Estate, as the Mayor has said. This is the statutory obligation where it is where we have done all the works required that we can remove the designation of flood prone. This also allows the people to build their homes here without the need to raise the level of their home, and also it does save the community on their insurance premium because it's not designated as a flood prone area. Lara Central Estate is growing exponentially, and this is just another good example where we can, as a council, we can really improve the lifestyle of a community when we can take away the flood designation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Aitken.
I'm happy to support this as well too. Anything that makes it easier for the voters in Lara should be encouraged at this point in time.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Any other comments on this one? Back to Councillor Grisbeck to close.
Nothing further, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, let's put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, item 15 is revocation of flood-prone area and designation of new lots at Armstrong Estate, Warn Ponds, stage 45 and 54, to be moved by Councillor Monane, who's an old hand at these, and seconded by Councillor Nelson, who's as well. Thank you, Councillor Monane.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Yeah, we've had a lot of these in the Armstrong Creek new suburb, and this one is related to some designation of a flood-affected land at Armstrong Estate. We're up to stage 45 and 54 of that subdivision, and the area is better known as 60 Airport Road and 52 to 86 Whites Road, Mount Dunedin. And the officer's, council officer's engineer recommendation is that the floodplain status can now be removed as a result of internal drainage, the road construction and other earthworks now done. So they're recommending the floodplain status can be removed, and I'm happy to recommend it. Thank you,
Councillor Monane. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Have I got mute off? Yes, I have. Yeah, this is the actual Armstrong Creek itself, to hold the waters back as they may. So I was down there on the weekend looking after some residents, and actually was looking at this estate, this very estate in behind the trees there. It's quite a nice estate with lots and lots of trees. So that's something that I like, as you guys all know, my fellow councillors, and Councillor Murnane has said all that needs to be said.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Anyone else want to comment on this one? Back to Councillor Murnane to close. Thank you.
Nothing further, Mayor.
Okay, let's put this one to vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, item 16, revocation of flood-prone area designation of new lots at Manzine Village back to Lara. Lara stages 8A, 8B and 12. Moved Councillor Grisbeck, seconded Councillor Aitken. Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. And this is another flood-prone flood designation revocation. This is the Manzine estate, as we have said, but this is actually the on O'Halloran's Road, which is right as the neighbourhood. As a neighbour to the new Lara West development. So this is taking the revocation out of the new estate in the Manzine Avenue, but it is right next to the new Lara West there. So I expect that we will be getting a few more of these as Lara West takes off, because this whole area was designated as flood prone, but given all the roadworks and the works that were undertaken in terms of drainage, as Councillor Murnane has said, these then now can come off. So nothing further to add, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Aitken?
Mayor Asher, excuse the pun, but I'm happy the tide is turning on these flood-prone revocations, because I've spent the last 3 years listening to Armstrong Creek every council meeting, and what's actually happening is development and investment in Geelong is moving to the north, and tonight we've got 2 in Lara. And you watch councillors over the next 3 to 5 years, most of them will be in the northern suburbs, and I'm really proud that it's showing that we are the investment future, and we are the fastest growing area of the city of Greater Geelong, and bring on more of these flood revocations, because the tide is turning.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. That's Amendment C395 at work. Okay, that's it. So we put this one to the vote. I'll only go back to Councillor Grisbeck to close.
Nothing further, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Excellent. Okay, item 17 is the road deviation part of Corio Street, Geelong, to be moved by Councillor Aitken, seconded Councillor Grisbeck. Thanks, Councillor Aitken.
Thanks, Mayor Asher. Look, this is a statutory requirement associated with the new administrative building that's being built by the City of Greater Geelong on Mercer Street. The community and our fleet needs access to that particular building. We've got about 120 car parks available. What this road deviation does is actually creates an entrance to that car park off Corio Street. And so essentially what we're doing, we're going to cut a little bit off Corio Street. We're going to add a little bit to Bailey Street, and that's all this actually does associated with it, to make it easier for access to that and exit to the administration building that is being built at Mercer Street. Yeah.
Great, well explained. Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Councillor Grisbeck.
I've got nothing further to add, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else want to comment on this one? No. Councillor Aitken to close.
Nothing further, Mayor.
Okay, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 18 is the proposed sale of part of 137 Mercer Street, Geelong, for the Civic Accommodation Precinct, moved by Councillor Harwood, seconded by Councillor Grisbeck. Thank you, Councillor Harwood.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. This is a slight continuation of item 17. We're seeking approval to give public notice of the intention to sell land located at 137 Mercer Street, which is our site of our new civic accommodation, and it's marked as Lot 2 on the proposed subdivision, which can be viewed on tonight's agenda. We resolved to sell part of this land in 2019. However, the final design of the new civic precinct, the land has now been reconfigured in relation to car parking. This necessitates a new statutory process. So the sale of this land will help fund acquisition of other parcels in the vicinity, allowing the civic precinct to be built as planned. So with council approval, the city will give public notice inviting community feedback.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Howard. Councillor Grisbeck?
Councillor Howard has expressly said that very well, so thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on this one? Back to Councillor Howard to close.
Nothing to add, thank you.
That's it. Okay, great. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, now we have a mover and seconder go into confidential for item 19, which is a proposed development. So to be moved, Councillor Howard, seconded Councillor Grisbeck. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Carried. Item 20 is a contractual matter, also to be considered in confidential. Mover to go into confidential for this one. Councillor Howard, seconded Councillor Mason. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 21 is also proposed development going into confidential. Moved Councillor Murray, seconded Councillor Howard. All those in favour? Those against? Thank you. Carried. Item 22 is the Audit and Risk Committee summary committee membership, going for confidential as well. Can I please have a mover and seconder to go into confidential for that one? Moved Councillor Mason, seconded Councillor Grisbeck. Thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. So we will now have a mover and seconder to close the meeting to the public. Moved Councillor Nelson, seconded Councillor Sullivan. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Okay, so that's the end of the live stream for this evening. We'll now move into confidential. So thank you for joining us.